I had the opportunity to interview one of my friends, Jake Bigelow, who's a cop at Casper, Wyoming. We have similar backgrounds with family members, parents that are addicted to narcotics, and how it kind of shaped or molded our future because we saw an avenue where we did implement. So we have that in common. I've known him for several years, so it's always good catching up with him, having these conversations. Jake was born and raised in Wyoming. Went off to the Air Force in Montana. Self-proclaimed that he didn't have a full job. He guarded nuclear weapons the entire time. But what he did pick up is he started to fly on his own. He has an interesting first responder route. He was a flight medic, then he became a fireman, and that he actually found his true calling, which was in law enforcement. He traveled the country and he teaches with Blue to Gold. He also owns like a refurbished movie theater that they turned into like a comedy club, and they do concerts and bands. He's also part owner of a bar. So he's got a very like entrepreneur spirit in him. And it's just cool to catch up to him. He's also had some very traumatic things that happened to him. And ironically, the podcast that you're going to listen to last week, Jake was the first officer that arrived on scene, one of BAM's guests, where there's a home invasion. Jake's also been in 2 officer-involved shootings. We touched a lot like extended period of time of the traumatic incidents, is how he deals with them, and how sometimes us as law enforcement or first responders, we think that there's something wrong with us because we have an emotional disconnection to traumatic things that happen to us. And I think for me personally, that's something that comes down to when you go into the profession, are you mentally prepared, and are you realizing this is a stability of the profession that you took? If you go into the profession not having that mindset, traumatic incidents will have an adverse effect on. But that's just my opinion. I'm no doctor. I love the podcast. I love talking to Jake. It's good catching up. So let me know what you think.
So you got to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? What keeps you motivated to stay proactive and get bad guys off the street?
The facts is a big cannon against a little tiny gun of opinions, because we've all heard people give us their opinions.
Let's talk about how easy it is to get narcotics in this country.
Once they're in this country, anywhere within 2 days, the drugs will be in our cities.
Because we know knowledge is power.
Today, we have Jake Bigelow, who is a cop out in Wyoming. I've known Jake for a long time, met him through some police adventures, some conferences. Jake, beyond being an officer, is also an amazing photographer, videographer, and that's mainly how I met him. He was always doing behind the scenes of conferences and stuff, and we became friends, and we still talk on a regular basis. But ironically, Jake ties into the last podcast that we did where I had BAM on, and there was a correction officer that had a home invasion, and Jake was one of the first officers on scene. We'll get into that later. But Jake, appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It's good to get on your podcast. I've been watching it since you started it up.
Yeah, you made me feel bad. I didn't realize that you and Morgan were friends, and then all of a sudden, I got a text from both of you guys like simultaneously about Jake's upset that you had me before him, and I was like, and then I called you, and then you said the same exact thing. I was like, man, it's open invitation. Anyone wants to come on, just shoot me a text. You can come on the podcast. So starting off, man, you're a cop now. How long you been a cop for?
Oh man, so I had military law enforcement experience, which I don't really count as copping. I guarded nukes, and then I had a break between that in fire and EMS, did that for a long time. And then I went back into law enforcement, civilian law enforcement in 2013. And I had some reserve time. When I was in the military, I got a job as a reserve officer in a tiny little town. It's like 1,200 people in Montana. And so I did that for a couple of years. And that was kind of my first experience into the civilian law enforcement side. And then in 2013, switched over from the fire EMS side to law enforcement. Started in smaller, in Casper where we're at now, but it's a smaller community attached to it, just a suburb, I guess is what you call it. There's no real suburbs in Wyoming, but it's a small town next to it. And then lateraled over to Casper. I think probably about 6 years after I'd started there.
What drew your attention to law enforcement besides the military?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a cop, honestly. So I spent my whole life wanting to be a cop. I did the whole Explorer Cadet thing. I mean, truthfully, what kind of started is I had not a great childhood. And so I tried real hard when I was younger to kind of like follow that shitty path. All the friends I had when I was younger ended up, going down paths that, got them in trouble. And I got really lucky, and I actually made some friends with some people that were in the Explorer program where I grew up at. And because I didn't really have good mentorship at the house. So I got into the Explorer program, got into Civil Air Patrol, and that was kind of my first experience with like actual adult mentors, right? People that guided you on the right path. And so that was it. So I kind of went from, being a shithead to all of a sudden wearing like an Explorer uniform and getting to ride around with the cops in my hometown. And so that kind of changed that. And then one of my buddies that was a little older than me joined the military, and he was security forces in the Air Force. And so I kind of followed his footsteps, went security forces in the Air Force.
Where were you born at?
Laramie. Well, I was born in Rock Springs, Wyoming, but grew up in Laramie. Spent most of my life in Laramie till I left for the military.
Growing up, any siblings?
I have a sister.
Okay.
She's a couple years younger than me.
Growing up, you said that you didn't have the best, adult mentors. What does your sister do now?
She sits at home.
She's good though. You both went on the good path.
Yeah, her and I. She's not a bad person. She doesn't do anything, but her and I definitely, like, I got the outward, go out into life, and she kind of got the inward, stay at home, kind of recluse type deal. So I mean, I talked to her. She lives her life. She's not a bad person. She doesn't, she's not a criminal. She's just not really a
motivated. I got you.
Social motivated person. Yeah.
Gotcha. Your parents, what kind of career path did they have?
My dad's an electrician, and my mom was a really successful drug addict. So
we have that in common. So
yeah. My dad was an electrician. So I mean, he was always around, had everything. I always had everything I needed. I certainly didn't suffer, physically or anything like that. He worked his ass off, but my mom was just high all the time. And, I got a long history of stories for that, how that played out. And so he just kind of tolerated it. And so we got stuck in it. And so it was just, my experiences with the cops there too was, growing up, the cops were always in and out of the house, had search warrants executed on our house because of my mom, things like that. So, those are some of my first experiences with law enforcement. And I kind of tried hard to see cops in a bad way when I was a kid. Until all of a sudden I had that change in mindset and the mentorship. And, so certainly I credit those mentors, and if anybody listens to it, they'd know who they are, right? Like I've made no mistake about telling those people that you changed the outcome of my life without even knowing it. So
that's awesome, man. When you, going through those traumatic incidents kind of with law enforcement, you're thinking your parents are these outstanding citizens, and then the cops are kind of the bad guys in those situations. Was there anyone that kind of took the time as they saw kids in these situations to speak human to you? Like, not necessarily it's all business, more like have, relationships and one-on-ones with you to let you know that life shouldn't be like this or anything along those lines?
The Explorer program, there was at the time, I think he was a lieutenant. He ended up becoming the police chief, and he just retired a few years ago. He's a cop for 40 years.
Jesus.
He Stalder. At the time, I remember as Lieutenant Stalder, but he ran the Explorer program. And so I remember him pretty specifically. Oddly enough, I don't really remember any other officers from there, except for some of the ones that I look back and had maybe bad interactions with when I was a kid. And not because I did anything wrong, but just the way they interacted with us in our house when, my mom would overdose all the time and stuff. So, the cops would be there. And so I have some pretty specific memories of how I viewed some officers and how they acted when they were around. So that's definitely shaped how I view, I guess, how important I think it is to how I deal with people, particularly kids in situations like that. Cause I remember it clearly, like it was yesterday. I could see the face of one. And it's not a fond memory. And, and then the Civil Air Patrol program, I'll just mention his name here, Justin Buckholtz. He's the one I followed into the military. So he went in a year before me. I followed him into the military. And what's crazy is that dude probably single-handedly, I didn't want anything else in the world other than to be like Justin, right? Like that's once I kind of latched onto that. And so that dude had it together, joined the military, just wanted to follow in his footsteps. And so he joined the military, I joined. And then oddly enough, we probably didn't talk for 18 years.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then out of nowhere, he shows back up in Casper, Wyoming as an intern at the department I work for, getting out of the military. He's on like a military retirement internship type deal, like job placement.
Yep. I think it's pretty evident that I'll probably be speaking at the Justice X conference, but I wanted to give my little instructor spiel like everyone else is. And the main reason is because I wanted to come in here and thank all these amazing instructors that are willing to donate their time away from their family, their profession, and their friends to come and make the profession better. I don't know how I became so lucky with the ability to surround myself with amazing people in this profession. I have some of the most amazing friends in this profession. They're the most selfless individuals willing to go out on a whim, put a conference together with me and just to try to make the profession a little bit better. And I don't know how I pulled this off. I don't know what it is, but I'm beyond grateful for them. That being said, when I speak at the conference, communication is the biggest thing to me. I think that communication is the most important tool that we have as cops, and that's not verbal communication. That could be nonverbal communication. I'm going to focus a lot of my instruction on that aspect, where communication is universal. It doesn't have to just pertain to interdiction. It's all of law enforcement. If you have the ability to communicate with someone that is a multimillionaire and a guy that's homeless living on the street, your career is going to be a lot more fruitful. And you have this ability to have a lot more empathy when you're communicating and understanding and being actively listening. Someone else came up with this. I love it. So I'm going to throw it out there. As cops, we are often waiting to respond and we're not actively listening, but you can't do them both. So I think as cops, you ask a question, engage and actively watch what their response is. It doesn't have to be this such a strict format of what you're asking, chronological order or anything like that. Let a conversation flow like you're talking to one of your friends. Don't just be so rigid. And that's where I think a lot of us fail, and it's not our fault. Until you know that you're doing it wrong, you'll never know. Like I was very robotic as a cop, and I couldn't communicate with people. I know that for a fact. I'm introverted, and I go to the police academy and all this other stuff. But anyways, I can't wait to see you in South Carolina in April of 2026 with all these amazing instructors.
And he interns, and now he's a corporal at the department I used to work for that I lateraled from. We talk all the time. So
very cool.
You know, that dude, I credit that dude for sure, because all I wanted to be was him. And so there was a lot of stuff there. And then some of the older folks in the Civil Air Patrol, and at the time I say older, but they were like 18, 19, you know what I mean? Certainly they guided me in that path. And so I just almost overnight stopped hanging out with the kids that were smoking weed, stealing shit, trying to live that life, and started gravitating towards them. So I definitely credit those guys with that movement into a successful life. So
when it comes to the officer that you remember vividly, I don't want to know his name or anything, but was it someone to the effect of they were always there and they would say negative things about your mother?
I don't remember. He was just a prick.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so I remember every time he'd come at the house, he was just an asshole.
Okay.
And then I remember a couple interactions. Like, it sounds so stupid, man, but like I already hated the guy because he was an asshole when he'd come over. And I never viewed the cops in our house, even when they executed a search warrant one time at the house and took all this shit that my mom had bought on like stolen credit cards and stuff, trying to buy people's love. They came in and took her to jail. And I never looked at the cops as bad in that situation, but the guy would come over for the overdoses with probation and parole. And he was just an asshole to us. And I just remember him not just being a prick. And I ran into him one time. I was riding on the handlebars of a friend past the police station. And he yelled at us to get off the handlebars. I mean, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was an asshole about it. And I just remember to this day, I'm like, that guy's an asshole. Like, that guy's a prick. And, and so I don't even know if he was trying to be an asshole or what, but man, you have, especially with kids, you create lasting memories with people, and so how you interact with them. And I doubt he probably was a good dude, but I just remember him being an asshole. And so it was funny that I still vividly remember. God, I'm 42 now. I was probably 14 or something like that at the time. So I mean, we're talking 28 years ago, and I can remember that dude's face like it was yesterday.
That's ironic. That's literally what I wrote. I have this little notepad so I don't forget a bunch of shit, and that's what I said. Like, I wrote influence, like the influence that you have. It could be negative or positive as a cop on the youth is everlasting because typically, you know, as humans, we remember good things or bad things, and if you want to be remembered for bad things and be a dick, like so be it. But it's gonna impact someone for the rest of their life, and not necessarily like impact them, but that's how they're gonna view you for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It bothers me. I hear that often. Typically, the people that I have on that are cops have it's like a lineage, like you know, cop after you know, dad.
Yeah, cop.
Yeah.
My dad was a cop. Grandfather was a
Or
cop.
most of the cops that I have on come from some troubled background somewhere in their family. Like you know, they've had people that gave them the right path on how to do things, but the temptation and their upbringing was always very, very negative. So it's interesting because I could see like society always says like, you know, people are set up for failure, but I'm like, man, at least 75% of the cops I have on, you would think that they were, you know, that it was like a lineage hire or something along those lines. But you would look at it in society and be like, oh, you're set up for failure. You should be not, you know, an outstanding citizen. And most of them are. So I love having people on that have had that. So it shows kids going through that same thing. Like, no, you don't have to be a piece of shit. You can,
you don't have to follow it.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and I'll tell you, like, I look back on it and the influence that some of the people had on me at that age where I mean, again, so, I mean, here's the thing. I had friends that at the time were like my best friends in the world, and they went to prison. You know what I mean? They got horribly addicted to drugs. And they went down these paths that, you know, it doesn't mean they're bad people necessarily, but they went down these paths that I could have easily followed them down. And the amount of influence that these mentors had on me because they took the time to give a shit, you know what I mean? And like that out because I wasn't getting it at home, right? Like I wasn't getting it at the house. And so it just changed it. You know, I remember the only time I ever gave a shit about my bad grades was when those people would be like, hey, your grades are fucked up. And you're not going to be able to participate in these programs if you're going to keep having, you know what I mean? So it was like, it was the only time that ever changed. And so, you know, they know who they are, right? And I'm shout out Justin on this one because I'm sure he'll watch the podcast. Maybe I'll get like a single tear to roll down his face in his patrol car or something. But you know, but I've told him, I'm like, you have no idea the influence you had on me at that time, and you probably didn't know it at the time. But like, you know, all I ever fucking wanted to be was Justin Buckholtz. You know what I mean? That was it. And so had I not tried to follow that path, who knows? So
Very
so
cool.
it's just funny that it comes full circle. And all of a sudden he's interning with me and, you know, spending months in a patrol car with me 18, 20 years later. And now he's a corporal at another agency. So
very cool. Cool story. I think that as kids, kids in general want attention, no matter what it is, good or bad. And if they're not getting good attention at home and they get bad attention for doing bad shit, like, well, at least someone's paying attention to them. I feel like a lot of times that's where the youth starts out going down that bad avenue. They're getting reinforced with negative reinforcement, but it's an adult that's paying attention to them. So they're like, well, shit, my family doesn't give a fuck. Kind of like, well, this, you know, I'll go do something bad. And then at least they'll talk to me, or, you know, even if it's negative.
Any attention is better than no attention. So
yeah,
it's pretty wild. So, I mean, that's kind of the history. It definitely wasn't, I mean, I didn't have the worst childhood. I didn't have a great one, but you know, certainly some have had worse for sure. So
just some trials and tribulations. I mean, I think we all kind of have them on, you know, with, going into high school and junior high, were those temptations were you seeking out the temptations from the negative side, like hanging around bad people? Like you knew these were bad kids, so you just gravitated to them?
no, I don't think so. I think what it was is that I didn't get treated like shit by them. I mean, the truth is I was kind of a little weirdo, man. Like, you know what I mean? I was tall, I was lanky. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't a big sports guy. Like I didn't, you know, so I wasn't popular. I wasn't a rodeo kid. I wasn't a sports kid. I was just kind of a kid who had no fucking place, right? Like I didn't have any identity at home. I didn't have anything else. And so, almost like that misfit outcast vibe, you know what I mean? It's like the only people who actually treated me nice, were the kids in those groups. And early on, you know, those kids aren't doing dumb shit. They're not stealing shit. They're not, you know, and then all of a sudden you get introduced to like, now you're smoking weed and stuff like that, you know, and that's for the most part where my stuff ended, was just like the weed side of that. Everybody has that, or at least a lot of people have that. And then I had gravitated away from them before I managed to, you know, really, you know, do anything stupid. But I think that's just kind of why I gravitated to them. They weren't necessarily bad kids at that point. Some of them really, really, really fucked their lives up later on. in life. But those were probably the only ones that actually, didn't, treat me like shit or bully me in high school or whatever. So I kind of gravitated to them. And I don't want to perpetuate the idea that like cops, who got bullied, now they're cops. I think that's a horseshit statement. But the truth is like that is who I identified with at the time. Because they're like, we were just outcast together. And so
is that part of why you went to the military too?
No, I didn't know I wanted to be in the military. All I wanted to be was a cop, even from as a kid. Even when I was doing some of that dumb shit, I knew, like, I honest to God, as cliche as it sounds, like, we put would like clothespin playing cards in your wheels to make motorcycle noises and pretend to be riding around as cops, stuff like that. So I always wanted to be a cop. And then it wasn't until I got into the Civil Air Patrol, which I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's an adult version and a kid version. The adult version does a lot of search and rescue. It's an Air Force auxiliary program.
Okay.
But they have a cadet program for kids. And it's like, think junior ROTC. It's just not affiliated with schools. And so I got into that. And dude, I remember I had a Halloween one day. I remember a girl that was in my school. She was in a full ass uniform with her name on it. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's a cool Halloween costume. She was like Civil Air Patrol. And I'm like, that looks cool. I want that uniform too. And so I started going to the meetings. And so that introduced me to this military side of it. And that's where I met these senior members, because it's run by adults. It's run by senior members. And so that's where I got introduced to these senior members. And I in an entire different group of people.
Nice.
That's like, I look at it and I'm not trying to disparage any of the friends I had when I was younger, right? They went down their path, but I just think about all of these groups, these friends that I had in this group. A lot of them, some went to prison. Some became drug addicts. Some are dead. And then I look at the group of people that I had transitioned to, right? And they all are, like lieutenant colonels and colonels in the military. They retired from the military. They're police officers. They're lawyers. They're, you know what I mean? They're successful. They're aeronautical engineers. So they've got all these people I hung out with on this side. Like they all went on to have these careers and families. And then the other side just, didn't do well. And so it's like, it's funny to see really the difference in just that. And I credit that program with my move in that direction.
It's kind of like
I'm hanging out with people who actually have normal families at home. You know what I mean? It's wild.
It's kind of like, you're going to, whoever you surround yourself with, you're eventually going to mimic some of their behavior. So surrounding yourself with people that are smoking weed and stealing, eventually, even if you don't do that on a regular basis, it's temptation is going to kind of have its course. Do you still have any conversation with the original group? Is there any of those original friends that you still see?
I do one.
Okay.
One, actually. I won't call him out in here. I don't want to share his story necessarily, but he went down a path that put him on a really bad place. And he ended up with a pretty severe drug addiction, ended up in prison, got out, and I ended up I ran into him like on social media. A couple of years ago. And we just, I was just like him and I shared a lot of trauma together as kids. Right. And so he had a pretty traumatic home life as well. And so him and I shared a lot of connection and memories. Right. But we went on completely different paths. And so, kind of talked carefully and, it turns out he'd been clean for years. And you know what I mean? He like owns his own semi truck and is doing his own right. And the dude's got, a wife and a house and all these other things. And so it was really cool to reconnect with him and, just talk about like, you've got this big gap in how your lives, progressed. And then you kind of come back to it and you're like, listen, man, there's not really any, we live vastly different lives, but it's pretty funny how fast you can come back and kind of connect on the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. When you go to the, you went to the Air Force, correct?
Air Force. And then when I got out, I went Army Guard too. So I spent 6 years in the Air Force, active duty, and then 4 in the Army Guard.
How was the Air Force?
At the time I hated it. And I look back and it's probably one of the better times of my life. Right. Like it's just funny how you don't realize you're in the good times until then.
Did
I
you,
still talk to a lot of people I was in the military with.
Where were you stationed at? Did you go on any tours or deployments?
Mountain Air Force Base primarily, guarding nukes. I didn't do anything cool. I joke about spending that much time in the military during the most active time and not doing anything cool. everything I did was, it didn't matter where I was at. I guarded shit. And so I wasn't like a, combat veteran infantryman. Certainly not outside the wire doing anything cool. So I look back at that and I'm like, man, I kind of feel like I missed out there, but maybe, who knows?
That's true. Why is the Air Force? Because of the Explorer program? Is that why you went down the Air Force route?
No, honest to God, I was in the middle of trying to get into the Army, and Justin joined the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
And so I followed him into the Air Force. He was just a year ahead of me. So,
what base were you stationed at? I'm sorry.
Malmstrom in Montana.
Okay. Did you enjoy Montana? I mean, I guess it's pretty similar to where you're at now.
It's just like here, yeah. I mean, the job itself sucks. Guarding nukes is a terrible job.
And you were there the whole time, 4 years?
Yeah, all six,
Oh,
other than
six,
training,
okay.
other than a short deployment. But again, that was not doing anything cool.
Right. And then when you get out, why did you go to the National Guard?
So I had a little gap after I got out. I went to paramedic school.
Okay.
After I got out, and then I got an opportunity to go into the medevac unit in Cheyenne here in Wyoming.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I went into the medevac unit and was a dust-off medic or a flight medic for the 4 years I was in the Army.
How was that? That's cool. I didn't know that.
It was awesome. I love flying, and so the cool thing about the stateside stuff is, especially on the National Guard, they do a lot of search and rescue. So a lot of search and rescue activations and stuff.
How does that financially? It seems like that would be a very lucrative job.
No,
Really?
not at all.
That's
No,
crazy.
paramedics get paid like dog shit. It's,
Wow,
I mean,
really?
honestly, it's one of the main reasons. Besides wanting to be a cop, it's so when I left, I was so I was flying as a civilian flight paramedic too. So I was on helicopters and airplanes doing civilian flight medicine for several years actually. And when I left that to take a full-time job with the fire department in Mills, which is kind of how I ended up in Mills, I was making like $20.50 an hour, something, as a critical care paramedic. This was like 2011, maybe.
That's still crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Working with nurses that we were doing the same thing, making $40 an hour. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
realize.
loved it. I love flying. I mean, it's cool as shit to get in a helicopter and fly and land on a road, but it's a kind of a dead end career. And I know I'll get shit for people who say that, but like I was there. There's no movement upwards in paramedicine. Like paramedics don't ever become the fucking CEO of a hospital. They don't ever become, you know what I mean? Like it's just a dead end career, and you just do it because you love it. But there's no real money in being a paramedic. There's no movement upwards. Whereas like nurses can go to nurse practitioner school. They can, they would spend enough time in the ICU. They're making, great money. They're right. For paramedics, you're just pigeonholed into the same job. And a lot of it is profit based. So it's about what's the minimum we can pay an employee to keep our employees. And
Wow. I'm sure that your location, you guys are busy compared to other places, right? Or just around the country?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we were busy. Again, it was fun. I liked doing it, but it was.
Do you still fly?
Like personally?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I still fly my plane.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I still partner on an airplane and fly it sometimes. 1982 Piper Dakota. It's like a station wagon with wings.
And what is the furthest that you've flown at, and how was that?
Oh man, Hannah and I went to Phoenix in it one time.
How
from
many
Casper.
stops? How many stops is that?
Well, I could have made it there with one stop, but it was about a 5-hour flight.
Okay.
To get there, but it's like, think 5 hours in like a Mini Cooper. You know what I mean? It's not super comfortable. The only benefit is it has an autopilot. So like once you get in the air, it flies itself, but you still have to sit there. So we made a couple of stops. We stopped in Grand Junction, stopped in Flagstaff, and then landed in Phoenix. And then same way coming back. But I flew over the Grand Canyon and like Lake Tahoe, or not Lake Tahoe.
That Lake Mead?
No, what is the? I'd have to look again. It's not Tahoe. It's the near the Grand Canyon. Powell. Is it Powell?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Powell?
I think so.
Pretty neat. Yeah.
When you're landing at these airports, how is that? Because are you landing at private airports? I would assume, right? Not like commercial.
Yeah, like you're not landing in like Denver International,
Right.
But like I fly in and out of the same airport in Casper that the commercial flights fly in and out of.
Is it completely? What's the process? I guess like as the normal flyer going through TSA and all that nonsense compared to you.
No, I fly with a gun. Like you know what I mean? Like,
Awesome.
because you don't go through security to get on your own personal plane. Like, I call up the FBO and I say, hey, I'm gonna be out at there at 2:00. Have my plane out. They pull it out. It's ready to go. I get there. I check it. I make sure the plane's good, and then I get in and fly. There's no security that you go through when you fly private like that.
That's pretty amazing.
So that's the benefit. Like I fly all over the state for my other business, and you know, it's not cheaper to do it, but certainly it saves a shitload of time. So
yeah, that the time wise, what is that a single prop or is that
single? Yeah.
all right? Have you ever had any moments where it was an oh shit moment?
Not in that one. When I was first training during my solos, I had a flap failure in the Cessna. And so I had landed, like this was a Cessna 172 that I was training in. So I had just gotten cleared for solos and I was doing like solo pattern where you're not a pilot yet, but you're flying by yourself.
Okay.
I didn't check, like there are electronic flaps in the Cessna 172. So the flaps were down for landing and you're supposed to raise them before you take off again. And so I raised them, but I didn't check to make sure they came up, and like a servo went out or something. And I took off with the flaps still fully extended. And so I couldn't climb and I couldn't get airspeed. And once I realized that I couldn't get the flaps to come up. And so I could barely climb. And I was constantly, I had to call the tower and be like, I can't climb. My flaps are stuck. So I'm trying to circle back around and land without having to, like, you know, cause you're slow, and anybody who's a pilot will understand what I'm saying. And if it hadn't been cold outside, the plane may not even gotten off. I mean, it could have been bad. And so a circuit breaker had tripped. And so once I kind of got set up, I found it and popped it and they came back up. And so that one was a little scary right there. So
especially early in your flight
career. I haven't had any wild, crazy things yet.
That is, I think it's the coolest thing to be a pilot, like watching it. I looked into kind of doing it, but it's pretty costly.
It's
to become
some money.
And then, yeah, I don't know, like those moments, like right there, I would think that I would be calm under pressure, but sometimes I don't know, it'd be like panic mode for me.
You know what's helped? Like, so I flew to Grand Junction here like last month or 2 months ago. And when I left Grand Junction in the dark, the weather was worse than I had expected it to be. And I'm IFR certified and the plane's certified. So I can fly in bad weather, right?
Okay.
Instrument rated. So I can fly in bad weather where you can't see anything.
Gotcha.
So I didn't get exposed to anything I wasn't like trained to do, but I didn't expect it to be as bad as it was. And so there were a few moments there where I was like, you know, it got a little, like, you really kind of hone in and you focus in on like watching your instruments, and you get disoriented in the dark, especially in the clouds. And like my mind was telling me that I was like turning and, you know, and the instruments tell me I'm not. And, you know, I think honestly, as funny as it sounds, like all the years in law enforcement and EMS, like you almost learn how to deal with that anxiety or that fight or flight in a way that like drives you forward.
Makes sense.
As opposed to controls you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't expect this conversation to go this way, but you just talked about something. So what's your assumption on the like Bermuda Triangle with all the plane crashes and those types of things?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to, you know, I'm all about some of that cool shit. Like I'd like to think there's some cool ass like alien, you know, whatever. I have no idea. You got those cool stories. You know, like I'd like to think that like the aliens built the pyramids, you know, it'd be cool if that was the case, but you know, I don't know. I don't have any strong opinions for or against the conspiracies that exist in that capacity.
But you think it's pretty easy if you're going through, say, a bad storm at night, that your instruments and you can be saying, and you're trusting your gut when your instruments are saying something else and you get disoriented pretty easily.
Oh yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And that's like the first thing of instrument flying is you can't trust yourself at all. Like the only thing you trust is your instruments. You cannot trust yourself because your mind will tell you that you're, you know, diving towards the ground when you're flying straight and level, or your mind will tell you you're flying straight and level when you're diving straight towards the ground. And so like they tell you you do not trust yourself. You trust your instruments. So it's like focus on your instruments. I mean, even in Grand Junction, I got disoriented and my mind was telling me I was in a descending turn. It felt like I was turning and descending, but my instruments said I was climbing and level. or like wings
Yeah,
level
yeah.
climbing, and that's the first time that ever happened to me that bad, where I was like, it is everything in my power to convince myself that that what my mind is telling me is not true.
That is interesting, especially for a cop, because you're always told to like trust your gut, trust
You
your
cannot trust your gut. Like when it comes to instruments, you don't trust your gut. Like I understand you trust your gut on the airplane and the noise it's making, and you learn the noises and and the shimmies and whatever. Like trust your gut there. But when it comes to your instruments, man, you trust your instruments, not your mind. That's for sure.
Crazy. So then, after being a flight medic, why did you went into the fire service for how long?
Oh man, so I've volunteered as a fire department or as a firefighter for, man, I got to Casper or Cheyenne, Wyoming in like 2007 after I got out of active duty. And I volunteered for a fire district there on the south side of Cheyenne. And I did that till like 2000 and probably 11-ish. But I took a full-time job as a paramedic in Casper in 2009. So I was commuting to Casper 2.5 hours, working 7 days, and then home for 7 days. And so I was still volunteering for that fire department while working in Casper as a paramedic. And then when I moved to Casper full-time, I had worked flight for a little while, and then long story, the flight team got sold to a private company. I didn't want to go, and I got an offer to go to the Mills Fire Department full-time.
Okay.
And so I took a full-time firefighter paramedic job with the Mills Fire Department. And I was there for a couple of years full-time until I decided I finally wanted to like be a cop. Like I just knew every day that I went to work as a firefighter, I just really wanted to be a cop. And I'm not even trying to be funny. Like that's all firefighters want to be cops, right? Like that's not even trying to be funny. Like I just, every time I would deal with cops, I was like, I should be doing that instead of being a firefighter. But I just tried to convince myself I didn't want to do it, and just finally happened.
And that's where you became a cop first? What was that transfer like?
Easy. I already worked with all those guys. It was a small department. Mills is only about 15 officers.
Oh, wow.
City's like 6,000, but it's attached to Casper. So it's about 100,000 people in this area, in this area. I mean, you've been here, so you kind of got to see. It's like there's about 100,000 people. Mills is 5,000. So I worked in Mills, but it wasn't like I worked in a town that only had 5,000 people. I worked in a town that had 5,000 people, but we dealt with all of the other stuff.
Right.
So we were pretty busy with all of that. Mills is a much lower income community, very industrial. Like every neighborhood in Mills, with the exception of the new subdivisions, is like house, trailer, crack house, trailer, nice house. You know what I mean? It's just
crazy.
So I did that, and then the transition was easy. I already knew everybody, and as soon as I started doing it, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Like I knew I was going to stick out being a cop. So,
how long were you in Mills?
Just at 6 years. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, the last year that I was in Mills, I actually was at the task force. So I went up to the drug task force, and
is
I
it
worked
a multi-agency, or is it like a DEA task force?
DCI. So it's run by the Attorney General's office out of the state of Wyoming. It's the Division of Criminal Investigation, and they've got enforcement teams around the state of Wyoming. And so the enforcement team in Casper is the central enforcement team, and it's made up of full-time state agents, state special agents, and then multi-jurisdictional TFOs that are assigned there full-time. And so like Mills had a TFO there, City of Casper has 2, county has 1, you know what I mean? So you've got your TFOs that were assigned there. So you're a special agent TFO.
And then at what point did you decide to go to Casper, and what was the reason?
Long story short, conflict with the chief in Mills. And I also knew that at some point I was going to go Casper. Like promotion in Mills is harder, smaller department. The pay is a big one. And this is not a statement against any Mills guys. Like some of those guys are fantastic cops. The department's a fantastic department. Work with them all the time. Great people. But at the end of the day, you're still restricted by a budget that the city gives you. And the truth is I had some conflict with the chief. Right. Great dude. I really appreciate him hiring me, when he did. And it was my first opportunity, but it just reached a point where we weren't jiving anymore. And so Casper implemented a signing bonus.
Nice.
And I kind of just hit that final straw where I was like, I'm done. I had to leave the task force to go to Casper because I had a 3-year stint. I only got a year in before I lateraled to Casper, but I got a signing bonus and that was a good choice for me. I mean, I got a huge pay raise right off the bat, signing bonus, and immediately started to be able to do the things I wanted. Plus, I'm a big proactive dude, like we've talked about, and so it's a hell of a lot more fun to be proactive in a place this big than a place this big.
Yeah, no, I get it. It makes sense. I was just curious if there was a lot of times I see it where the small agency, a lot of it's just the financial aspect of it. They just don't have the money to pay their guys. It is what it is. It's just the national average, and
Yeah, it was a
proactive
mix of
staff
all of
want to
them.
work in a cooler area where they can be more proactive in general.
That's what it came down to. I mean, at the end of the day, like the final straw was the chief, my conflict with the chief. And again, I got nothing bad to say about the dude. He's a great dude. He was a good chief. Him and I just didn't. I bet you he would probably come on here and say, "I like Jake. We just don't get along." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
just one of those
personality.
things.
Yeah.
It's a great dude, and I would argue that, I mean, he's been the chief there for a long time, and he ran a great department, and I've never seen anybody shitty come out of that department. I got nothing bad to say about the guy, and our personality issues are equally as much me as it was him. So that mixed with the fact that at the time the pay was substantially higher, and I just wanted to be able to have more opportunity to grow inside the agency. So just was the right time.
When you got into law enforcement, did you have any aspirations to be on a special duty unit or anything along those lines?
Man, I don't know. I don't think I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got into law enforcement initially. I just wanted to be a cop. Because I remember early on, right? Like some people are going to be, angry at me here. I'll be angry at me. I'm angry at my old self, right? Like when I first became a cop, I thought that it was all about like, man, writing tickets, right? If I could write 15 tickets, every shift, like I was doing the Lord's work. And it didn't matter who I was stopping. And so it was like this shotgun blast effect to just stop everybody, write tickets. And sometimes I'd slip and fall on something cool.
Yep.
And then I started getting heavy into like DUI enforcement. I started really liking DUIs, which now, I can't stand DUIs now. It's funny how it changes.
Yeah.
And so my goal was like, I want 100 DUIs a year. And, so you kind of do that. And then I start following these people that are doing like the interdiction work, the dope work. And so I step into that a little bit and I start going, man, that's actually a lot more fun than just stopping school zone violators.
Yeah.
And that kind of set me up to put my eyeball on the task force. So that was kind of, that progression from like, don't know my head from my ass. And then you kind of move into that. And then I was like, man, I love dope work. I love the dope investigation side of it. And then, so when I got to go to DCI, even though I didn't get a full 3-year stint, I did a year. I learned more about drug investigations and DTOs and conspiracies and how to talk to these dudes on the street, the guys and girls in the dope game. And like, there's a reason why new cops don't get along with dopers on the street. And, old school cops are like, yeah, what's up, bro? You know what I mean? And
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just wild. So I learned a lot from those guys up there. There were some pretty badass agents up there that taught me a ton.
Do you
And
think
they got me into, sorry, go ahead.
do you think any of your mom's issues as a child had an impact when you started to find dope?
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest thing is I had some empathy for what was happening behind the scenes. Maybe not the user. I think in the beginning I was pretty closed off to the idea that the user themselves were decent. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Like, like the person themselves, I was closed off to the idea that they were just people, working through their problems, dealing with their own struggles, seeing it through their lens. So I'd convinced myself that if you're using and selling dope, you're just a piece of shit. That's lit. You know what I mean? And so I didn't see it. They weren't humanized to me. I didn't really see it as like it was about going out and catching them. I didn't give a shit. I did definitely have some empathy for like the people that were trapped in it, their kids.
Yep.
Or sometimes you're dealing with the parents that are like booking, bonding them out or coming to get them or whatever. And, I could see it from that perspective. So no, I don't think so. And I think some of that was driven by the fact that I had a lot of resentment towards my mom then too. So yeah, I think maybe. And so like, I openly admit that it took a long time for me to start humanizing these people.
I think that's the evolution of a cop. If you came from some type of traumatic incident, it's hard for you to look at that any other way than your lens of what you grew up with and what you were seeing. So I don't think that's a bad way. It's good that you eventually realize, like, but it's hard to break 18 years of what you saw, and then you see another lady that has kids at home, and you're like, why the hell would you put your kids through this? I just lived 18 years of this, and then you
Right.
kind of correlate moms together.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely, like, you see the shit that these people do, and so it's hard to humanize it because you see the bad things that they do, in the name of addiction. I mean, some of them just truly are evil people, right? Like, some of these people are just evil, but most of them aren't. Most of them are normal people that are coping very poorly with mental health
Trauma.
and
Yeah.
and those other things, and then they support their habits. And luckily, I've never been addicted to methamphetamine,
Right.
but my experience, with these people are that it's an extremely difficult drug to. I mean, it changes your entire physiology, like it.
Right.
And so I it took me a lot of time to gain empathy. It doesn't mean empathy doesn't mean that you, like, if I stop you and I catch you with dope, you just get let go. It just means that the way that I view you is a lot less personal. The way I interact with you is a lot less personal. And it's a lot easier to treat people with respect when you're like, listen, man, it's not personal. This is my job. And some compassion there. Or, not everybody goes to jail for a meth pipe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes the meth pipe doesn't need to be arrested.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the empathy comes into play when you start to have those real moments with the individual that are struggling, and you start to break down those layers of, I guess, cop and criminal, and you start to see how they got here, why they're here, and what home life is, and if there's an avenue out that you could maybe, I don't know, show some leniency to guide them into that avenue of getting out
Yeah.
without going into prison or whatever.
And it's wild because a lot of them, like, I've been doing this job long enough now that I see the evolution, right? You see those people in those roles, especially in a community that's not, I'm not outside of Chicago. So, like, these people stay here.
Right.
And so some of them do really well, and you run them to later and they're like, dude, I've been doing so good. Like, I won't throw a name out there, but Hannah and I went to a restaurant one time, we were eating, and a girl that I had put one of my first cases on as a TFO. I put a case on her, right? You know what I mean? I took her kids, I put a case on her. And I mean, she was pretty bad off. And we worked for a while, and she did her thing, and we kind of, how a drug investigation goes with certain
Right.
people. They, maybe they provide info,
Mhm.
right? And so we had those relationships in that capacity, that informant, relationship. But for the most part, like, there just wasn't really anything there. And she was back and forth and back and forth. And, like, last year we were eating dinner, and she walked up and was like, Jake. And I'm like, holy shit, right? And she's and like, literally in the restaurant, she's working, and she's like, I want to thank you. You know what I mean? Just like that conversation.
Yeah.
She goes, hey, I want you to know that in all of the years that I fucked up as a horrendously addicted drug user, getting my kids taken away, the only cop who ever actually meant anything to me was you. You know what I mean? She's like, you're the only person who ever actually gave a fuck about me in a way that felt like you gave a shit, but you didn't let me get away with shit. Right. And so, like, everything that I did, I earned it, but you're the only one who ever treated me with respect. And she goes, and now I'm clean, and I have my kids, and I've been clean for like 2 years now. And she's like, so I credit you with that in some capacity, because had you not continued to push it, I wouldn't have been forced to push it. And so I thought that was pretty cool. You know what I mean? You're like,
Those stories are, I mean,
oh,
those stories are always cool to see as a cop, where, it doesn't necessarily mean that you went to prison, but I had a positive influence. I had a positive influence in the outcome of your life, because the way you were going was not going to be positive. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that I had to put you in prison to do it. It just means I had to treat you fair and with respect and empathy. And maybe I could speak to you when other people couldn't, to get you away from that horrible fucking addiction.
yeah. Well, and I think just being respectful to people and being
Yeah.
nice, and I
Agreed.
fail sometimes. Sometimes I'm an asshole, but for
We
the
all
most part, you try to treat people with respect. And I mean, it does come back sometimes. And I mean, the one thing I learned, honestly, the craziest thing I ever learned, and like, I travel around and teach now too. And I always talk about this, especially to guys guys or girls that have never been into this, is like, the one thing I learned working drugs for real, and like having female informants and sitting down with females and listening and seeing what happens, is women in the dope game are some of the most sexually assaulted, abused,
Mhm.
manipulated people I've ever met. And they're in that role because of their addiction. But man, like, you want to talk about women that are repeatedly sexually assaulted or transferred for drugs or forced to have gangbangs with your doper friends for dope. They're not doing that because they want to, but they've got these dudes around them that do it. And so, I developed this idea that, like, man, a lot of the dudes in the dope game who talk their girlfriends into doing that might as well be fucking pimps, might as well be sex traffickers. And so I developed a little bit of empathy for, like, women in the dope game. It doesn't absolve their action necessarily, but man, some of the stories I heard about women being like, I didn't want to do it, but when I said no, this is what happened to me. You know what I mean? And also, I needed to be high, so I was willing to let people violate me in ways that you can't even fucking imagine in order to do it. Or I got traded for dope. My boyfriend traded me for dope. Like, and so that was an eye opener for me. And so, it doesn't mean you get a pass, but
yeah, I do. I can't, as a cop, like, there's two crimes. I preach this all the time and I say it all the time and I'll never stop, but there's two crimes that I can't fucking fathom. I just don't get it. It's when people hurt women and kids. Like, I just don't fucking get it. I'll never understand it. I can look at crime and I'm like, I rationalize, like, I'm like, okay, I see why you did this or whatever it may be. But if you're hurting women and kids, I don't have, my mind can't make it reasonable in my mind. Like, there's no reasonable reason that you would do that. It doesn't make fucking sense.
Yeah, no, yeah, you can't. I mean, and some of the stories I heard from these women, like, because they get busted, they got caught with dope agents get called out. You sit down and interview with them, and when they get comfortable enough to tell you about it, like, you listen to them talk about how they've been sexually assaulted by numerous people for, on a daily basis for the last 6 months, and it's their boyfriend that does it. And you know what I mean? And you're like, man, like, so that's wild to me. That's some of the stuff I learned. And so, so I'm like, listen, when you're dealing with these women in the dope game, it doesn't mean they get a pass, but you got to understand, these girls get trafficked for dope in a way that you can't even imagine, right? And they willingly do it. And the problem is, it's not a sex assault because they consent to it.
I don't know if they willingly do it. It's an addicted induced.
That's what I mean. Like, they consent to it in order to stay high.
They say yes, but it's not.
Yeah, they're doing it to stay high. It's not something they want to do, but they're doing it with consent.
Yeah.
That's like just so coerced.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that was a big eye opener for me, right? And so that allowed me to see, I guess, people differently. So that's what I mean. That year in narcotics was probably the most informative year of my entire law enforcement career, for sure. And I got to do a lot of UC work. I just fell into it. Not everybody who works dope does UC, right? And
right.
And so I had some guys up there that trusted me enough to do it and trained me and helped me do it and let me go do it. And I fucking loved it. I got story after story of me getting ripped out of cars by my partners, arresting me. Colton, if he ever watches this, he'll hear it. Colton's goal every single time I got ripped in a buy bust or something like that was to fucking slam me on the ground. And so I would talk shit. I would talk shit to him and he would talk shit back, and we just put on a whole show for it. But he would slam my ass on the ground.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I liked it. It was a good time.
When you go to Casper, you go right back to patrol then? So you go from task force back into patrol? Yeah, right into patrol. I had a shortened PTO or FTO because I knew everybody. I already worked in the area. I'd already been working. And so basically what they said was, we're going to put you in field training, but it's going to kind of be dictated on like how you do. And so I think I was only in field training for like 4 weeks with Casper because I'd already been working in that area on the same system, same dispatch, working with those guys. Gotcha. And so they kind of just gave me the ability to, like, the field trainers kind of had to say, like, he's got it. He doesn't, we don't need to make it any longer. So that was cool. I didn't have to do like a 16-week. Yeah, with the work that you've done and stuff, I know that you're a videographer and a photographer. Where does that come into play, and how did you start doing that?
I don't even know. I can't even tell you. I think I wanted to do it. Honestly, it started, I was like, man, I want a camera. And then I started, so I went and bought one, and then I kind of just started playing with it and bought a drone. And then, honest to God, I made a friend that's never been a cop, has nothing to do with law enforcement. And he lives a couple hours from here, but the dude quickly became probably one of my best friends in the whole wide world, man. Like, and he's not a cop, never been a cop, has nothing to do with law enforcement. And he's a videographer, photographer, does really well. I mean, we went to Europe together. We went to England and traveled around for like 3 weeks doing photos. And so he's got photo video business. I learned a lot from him, and it just kind of took off.
So you do a good job. And it's all self-taught.
Yeah, all self-taught. I mean, mentorship, like self-taught.
But like not going to schools or anything like that. Just very cool. You still do that? Do you get paid?
Yeah, I've transitioned it heavily. I do a lot. So I have a real estate video or real estate media company.
Okay.
Now that's where 90% of my photography comes from. I'll do weddings every once in a while. And then I do some hobby photography when I have time, but I bet you 90% of my business is real estate. Like, houses for sale.
And I do drones with those too, right?
Drones, yeah. And
cool.
I mean, I've built it up for years now. I've got such a big client list. I actually have another photographer that works for me now. That takes a bunch of shoots and everything, does the listings. And so I still do all the booking and the editing and the delivery, but he goes out and shoots. It's actually my captain's son.
Oh, very cool.
He's like 20, he's in college. I trained him up. I actually bought the equipment for him and let him pay me back slowly.
Very cool.
And he does a great job. So
what else business-wise are you into?
Oh man, I ended up as a partner in a comedy club and a big live music nightclub bar.
Very cool.
So
how did you fall into that?
Again, I don't even know, man. I think I'm just willing to take the risk. The opportunity presented itself. The other person who was looking at it knew a couple of people. I knew one of the partners already, and we all kind of just got together. And I'm the poorest of the partners, but I had just enough to be able to make it work. And so I took a risk and bought into it, and we all did it together. And then just recently, we merged 2 businesses into one. And so I got ownership in a whole separate other business. That's how I ended up getting ownership in the other bar, entertainment, live music venue.
Very cool. Very cool. With the photography, does that overlap at all? Can you do some? Do you do some of the stuff for the venues and the bar, or no?
I do some. Yeah, like we need it. Like I honest to God, there's so much already there. Like I went straight from like cop and photo to I skipped the small business thing and went right to ownership in a company that has like 40 employees. You know what I mean? And multiple commercial buildings. And again, I'm not sure how I got into it, but I'm thankful I did. My partners are fantastic. Like absolutely, like you are who you surround yourself with.
Exactly. And
these dudes are great people. And so the truth is we already, like the companies already have a marketing team and stuff that get paid. So I don't have to go do a whole lot, but I will.
How does your agency look on that business adventure? Do you have to ask them permission or anything along those lines, or no?
We do. Yeah. It's off-duty employment type deal, but I don't think very often the agency's dealing with people that are like owning companies like that. Usually it's like, can I go work a side hustle at and so I own a business now that has 2 liquor licenses, right? And so like that was a concern. So I went to the police chief and sat down and talked to him, and we kind of just went over it and said, like, there's not really any. Basically, the ground rules that we set are there's nothing that says you can't own the company that has the liquor licenses.
You just can't get a liquor license?
Well, it's like our policies don't let you go be a bartender. So like off duty, you can't go be a bartender. You can't go be a security guard.
Similar here. That's what I was asking.
And so that was the concern, was like, well, can I own liquor licenses? And so what we basically decided was the ground rules that got set were cool. You can own these companies, you can be involved in these companies, you can manage these companies, but what you can't do is you can't serve alcohol inside the company as an owner, right? So we just don't want you serving alcohol, and you can never, ever, 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 ever bounce or be a security guard or throw people out. Like you have to turf that to employees. And so your ownership in that is that you can't involve yourself in those things because they're too high risk. And as an owner of those companies, I don't want to do that anyways.
Right. That makes sense.
And so that's really the only rule. And so that's basically it, is I just don't serve alcohol. I don't have anything to do it. And then obviously there's a conflict if the businesses become the victim of a crime, right? Like vandalism or something like that. I just can't take it or be involved in it. It's that simple.
Conflict of interest. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you said you were traveling and teaching. Who's that with, and how often? Where are you going?
Blue to Gold. You actually interviewed Anthony Bandiero.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was a good interview.
We did a joint podcast together, him and
I.
I.
Yeah, it was like a joint. Did you guys do it live? Were you guys live on that one?
No. It was recorded.
Okay.
We just kind of literally we just winged it and just went. we brought up topics and just went with it.
Yeah, Anthony, God, 4 years ago, Anthony gave me an opportunity. I went through their search and seizure instructor courses, the certified search and seizure expert courses. I've always been super heavily involved in the search and seizure stuff. And I had talked to Anthony quite a bit before that and had expressed some interest in teaching. And so my big break was agencies in Wyoming reaching out to Blue to Gold and wanting an instructor. And so Anthony reached out and was like, listen, dude, I'm gonna be honest with you, sending an instructor out to Wyoming is really expensive. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And so there's a department that wants it. So I'm willing to give you a shot. Go do it. Let's see how well you do. And then we'll go from there.
Nice.
And so I guess I did good enough to keep going. And so now probably 4 years now, I've been teaching for Blue to Gold. And at this point, I've been all over the place. I've been in Washington, Kentucky, Missouri. I just got back from Illinois, Texas, Tennessee, Wyoming, Colorado. So I've got to travel all over the place and teach quite a bit. And I'm one of the very few non-attorney instructors for the company that's teaching search and seizure. And so I'm pretty thankful.
One of the only active cops that's teaching it too, then, right?
Yeah, Craig Meyer.
Yeah, but the search and seizure aspect.
Oh, the search and seizure stuff. I think I'm probably. I don't want to speak for sure. I want to say Zach Miller's a active police officer still, isn't he?
I'm not sure. I thought that he was on the verge of retiring. He might have stayed on, but I know he's up there. He can't retire if he hasn't yet. I know.
Yeah, I think he might still be a cop, but I mean, certainly I am that I'm aware of the only working police officer who is not an attorney or in law school that gets to teach for the company. And so
that's cool.
I got all the time. I have imposter syndrome. Every time I teach a class, I'm like, that's it. I'm gonna get bad reviews. Anthony's gonna say no more, but
nothing against the other guys. You're probably more relatable since you're still out there doing it. So I think that you could probably relate to the patrolman or the guys out there working generally on the road, maybe a little bit better than some of the others.
Yeah. Like I try to do that in all my classes. My agency's freaking awesome. My new chief, he became the chief about 11 months ago, officially like 8 months ago. And that dude is an absolute badass. Like I wouldn't want to work for anybody else. That guy is great. And essentially he said, listen, you can put your videos in your classes that you're teaching, since you're teaching cops. The only rule is you can't disseminate them. You can't let people record them, but I don't care if you use the videos, you're teaching cops. And so that's pretty awesome that I get to do that. And so the classes that I teach, I'm teaching the same curriculum, but I sprinkle a whole lot of my own shit in there for sure. A lot of my own videos. So when I'm teaching certain lessons, I'm showing my own stops, bicycle stops, arrests, showing, pulling guns off people, pulling dope off of people, but adding it to the class in a way that reinforces the search and seizure component.
Yep.
Where like Craig's class is very, very, very behavior based. It doesn't have a search and seizure component. Right. I try to get a little Craig in my class with the search and seizure aspect of that. So, and I keep telling Craig, we need to build a 2-day course where you do your class and then I do a search and seizure class.
No, I mean, it makes sense. I mean,
show the legal side of it.
Yeah, I think, you as an instructor or as a cop, I would want the instructor to have the expertise in what I'm going to learn. Like I don't go to a DT's class and of a guy that, is like a emergency vehicle operator. I want to go to a DT class. The guy's like a fucking brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and goes 4 times a week, so I think like going to classes of individuals that are out there actively doing it or have done it for an extended period of time and, recently left the job or whatever is the best way to learn it. I think, you don't want to go to a class.
I think it's neat to show up on like a Tuesday and teach a Tuesday, Wednesday and say, listen, guys, I got off shift on Sunday and then I go back to work on Friday.
Yeah.
Right. And also, by the way, hey, this video I'm going to show you, this is from Sunday. Yep. Right. I think that's pretty neat. And so Anthony gives me the latitude to, right. So Anthony's built in, I mean, you've seen the curriculum. Anthony's built an incredible search and seizure curriculum, right? Like, I mean, it just makes sense. It's so easy to follow. And so it's almost like cheating because all I have to do is find videos that fall into his curriculum that makes sense. And then I can teach it in a way that makes sense and use my own video. And so I'm kind of getting my own street cred that way too, I guess. But Anthony lets me do that. And, and so I've been lucky to get to keep teaching for the company and I certainly appreciate it. And
very cool. What is your aspirations with Casper? How many years do you have there?
Well, so I've got a little over almost 7 now with Casper. So I'm at like 13 years total.
Same pension as before?
What's up?
Are
Same
you in the
pension.
same-
It's a
okay.
state pension. So I've got 13 years in the pension. So I've got another 7 to retire. I got promoted to sergeant last year. And I just got selected for our street crimes unit to take over that as a sergeant.
Very cool.
And that hopefully around April.
Nice.
That'll happen. And so, I mean, I don't know. I'm in an interim lieutenant role right now. One of our patrol lieutenants is gone. He's at the FBI Academy.
Okay.
And so, like, my chiefs.
One of my commander's there right now.
Oh, to ask your commander if he met Seth Wheeler.
I will as soon as we get off here.
Seth Wheeler is a lieutenant with Casper. So what's cool in my chief is he's super, like, career progression. So he said, sergeants in the department that are interested in possibly becoming lieutenants in the future, I'm going to implement like a lieutenant succession plan. And so what we're going to do is, while he's at the FBI Academy, we're going to promote sergeants to lieutenant interim. And you're going to fill that role on an interim LT. We're going to pay you, and you're going to do the job, and you're going to work with another patrol lieutenant. But you're going to have all the rights and privileges of a lieutenant. And hopefully the goal is to learn and open your eyes to the bigger picture. And so I'm about 2 weeks into that. And I had somebody ask me yesterday, I went to one of the other team briefings, and they said, "Are you drinking the Kool-Aid yet?" And my response was, honestly, yes, a little bit. And it's not that I'm being brainwashed or anything. It's that I'm being shown things that I didn't know existed, right? Things you don't ever deal with as a patrol sergeant or on patrol. And then these things come up and you're like, people did that, or that's really a problem, or that happened. And so the answer is, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, because now I'm seeing a bigger picture.
No, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So
people start to go down that, like, oh, you're going down the company man type thing, a company. Yeah, you're like a company man or whatever it is. But I don't think it is. I mean, the structure of a police department only functions if it's the police department comes number one, the guys and girls that work at the police department are number two, and you are always number three. Like, it has to go there, right? So you always have to have agencies. The agency is number one, and the guys and girls that work there are number two, and then you're always on the back burner.
Yeah,
but if any of those get inverted,
it messes everything up.
Yeah,
I had one thing to that. I read a book last year, like a leadership book. I've been really trying to, like, expand my horizons on leadership, supervision, management, how you merge the two. And I think that leadership, sometimes people are natural leaders, and sometimes people can be trained to be leaders. And it's funny that you said that. And so I actually, it's a 4-prong test, or it's a 4-prong step for me. It's mission first.
I like that.
Department second, team third, you last. And so, so essentially, it's like, from that perspective, I say, all right, we're out on the street. I got guys out on the street. We're doing this thing. The mission is what? The mission is to go deal with this issue, this call, this thing. So that has to come first. So our goal is to deal with this first. And we have to deal with that in a way that's moral, legal, ethical. And we have to deal with that in a way that puts the department second. And then once we've established that, now I can look at you guys and say, you guys are important, but you don't come before the mission. You don't come before the department. You come after that on a slight level. I'm sure some people in your comments will be like, that's fucking horseshit. But right. And then last is me, right?
It has to be that way. Has to be that way. Right. And it should be that way for every person in the department. Yep.
Yeah. So how I view myself and the importance I think I have comes last. Like, I am the least important in a setting like that. And so that's kind of the vibe. But what I'm seeing is that administrative role, I think sergeant's the best gig in the world, man, because you get to be a supervisor, manager, and leader in real time.
Yep.
Because I get to manage, lead, and supervise in the field in real time. I get to grab a shield. I get to enter a house. I get to get into a fight with somebody. I get to be there next to these people that I work with. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I get to motivate and make them better. And we're there all the time together. And so there's leadership, management, supervision, whereas a lieutenant loses a lot of that leadership role because they're not out leading and they become managers. So there's a lot more manager supervision, which is why people, I think, say they're drinking the Kool-Aid, because they've lost sight of the leadership. But a lieutenant's job, at least depending on the structure of your department, isn't to go out and lead you from the front. Their job is to manage a big picture.
Yep.
And so I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. I have not decided if I actually want to be a lieutenant or not. But again, a lieutenant means I'm not out on the street making stops, and I like making stops. So
I get it. Yeah, I think two of the biggest positions in a police department that often get overlooked is the sergeant and an FTO.
Yes.
If you don't have a quality FTO that's, molding young cops to, be active or whatever I guess, your mission, your department mission is, which should be proactive and prevent crime from happening. Your then new hires don't know how to do it. And then if you have a sergeant that stifles any type of proactivity or don't go do anything and discourages cops from being active, or whatever, against the department mission, like that just ruins the entire morale of that division or whatever, the patrol or whatever he's in charge of. So
yeah, you can destroy a team, man. You can destroy a team.
Yes.
And so I think I'm lucky in some capacity because I have always been proactive. And so I know some people disagree with me again. And I don't really give a shit, I guess. But I think that excluding priority 1 calls, right? And again, everybody labels their shit differently, but excluding priority 1, emergent, we need cops here now, somebody's going to be killed or hurt, or there's an active crime being committed type calls. Proactive policing is as important as that.
I agree.
And so we're always going to have the cold shopliftings. They stole some shit 3 hours ago, and now I finally have time to report it, right? And so we still have to take those calls. But this is what I tell people all the time. I don't give a shit how many calls are on the board. I don't care if there's 25 calls on the board holding right now, okay? Unless a cop needs help or there's a priority 1 call on the board, if you see criminal activity, and by criminal activity, I mean behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If you see people demonstrating behavior associated with criminal activity, distancing, you know what I mean? Self-stopping, anchoring, all of the things that Craig teaches in his class. And you don't clue in on that and make that traffic stop because you're going to a 4-day-old Autoberg, right? And you have a sergeant that says, no, calls first, then go play. That is absolute fucking horseshit. It is a messed up priority. And it's essentially saying, ignore criminal activity now to go take a 4-day-old Autoberg. That Autoberg will be there in 2 or 3 hours if it has to hold. But that dude that's committing that crime right then and there, and again, you might not know what they're doing, but I've made some traffic stops off of behavior that have netted incredible charges and uncovered incredible criminal behavior. You know what I mean? And then I've made traffic stops where it's a suspended driver's license. You know what I mean? Right. Exactly. And their behavior is the same.
Yep.
And so you don't ignore proactive. You don't. And so that's the rule I have on my team is I'm like, listen, you will never, ever, ever hear me tell you to go take low priority bullshit calls that are holding in lieu of proactive policing, as long as they get taken and you do your job.
Yeah. And I think like you just talked about, disregarding someone that you be doing suspicious behavior. Let's just leave it at that. And you're going to a 4-day-old call for service that is cold and you're just going to do a report and forward it up to the detective bureau. They're going to investigate it or they're not. That guy could then go commit a crime that you're going to be taking a report for in 4 days because somebody's going to break into another car. Yeah. It could be the same guy, and you could prevent this report from coming in 4 days by just letting that one hold out for another 30 minutes, and someone else can take it if you get something. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, you've seen those sergeants that are like calls first, go make traffic stops later. That's wild to me. That's insane to me.
Clear the board, clear the board.
Then go make stops. Bullshit.
Why did it take you 14 minutes to respond to that call? Like those types of things. Yeah,
right. Handle your priority shit, right? Like when a cop needs help or there's something life-threatening, you go take that shit. But everything else, we'll get to it.
We're gonna change subjects a little bit. What you've been through some traumatic shit on the job. You've been through 2 shootings?
Yeah, 2.
How many years in before you got into your first shooting?
Man, when was my first one? I want to say I'd only been a cop for like 3 years or 4 years in my first shooting.
Was that with Mills then?
I was with Mills, but oddly enough, it was in Casper. Yeah, so I was in Mills. It's funny, I had just built a new rifle. I had just built a brand new rifle, and it was back in the day when really nobody was running like LPVOs, like the Vipers, like the 1-4s, 1-6s.
Okay.
So you remember like there was this like transition period where people started going from like aim points, red dots, to the 1-4s, like the PST, like the Viper PSTs. And so I just built a brand new Aero Precision rifle, and I put a 1-4 Viper PST on it. And I was just talking to a Casper sergeant about that rifle, and like, I got it. I did it because now I can run it for long and short range. I can run it for, you know, kind of like not a sniper rifle, but like an Overwatch type deal. And nobody was really running those zoom optics then. And so I just had that conversation, and I was helping them right on the border of Mills and Casper. There's a bridge that crosses the river, and it was like a suicidal call. And somebody had said that they saw a guy jump off the bridge into the river. And so we were over there, like Casper and us were kind of looking and helping out. And while we were on that, Casper got a shots fired call. And multiple callers from a neighborhood said there's a guy out in the street and he's shooting guns into houses.
Damn.
And so at first it was like, what? No way. And then there was another call that came out that said somebody's shooting through our window into our house. We're on the floor. And so it quickly became a real call. And so multiple people called and said, there's a crazy guy, our neighbor's outside, and he's firing rifles into houses. So I told the sergeant there, I was like, hey, listen, you guys go to that. Clearly, I'll clear up the suicidal for you. And so me and Chase, his last name's Law, funny enough, but me and Chase Law were on duty in Mills. So we were sitting there hanging out, finishing that up. And so the first arriving officers got on scene. I remember hearing it clearly. The first arriving officers got on scene, and they called out, we're arrival. And within seconds, they called shots fired. He's shooting at us. And so then it was like everybody. And so what had happened is they got on scene, but the neighborhood was pitch fucking black. And they didn't see anybody, but obviously because of their lights and stuff, when they pulled up, he was outside, he fired rounds at him and then ran back into his house. And so everybody went. And so they started getting a perimeter set up. They figured out which house it was. And I remember the sergeant got on the radio. I was Lincoln 12 at the time. And he's like, Lincoln 12, can you come here? I don't remember if he said he didn't say like with your rifle, but I think he's like, Lincoln 12, can you come here? So we had just had that conversation about that rifle. And I remember Chase going, you're going to shoot somebody tonight. Right. And it was just kind of surreal, like just the way it came out. And
right. So
I rolled over there. And so I had gotten requested to go over there. And also all officers in my county are deputized, even if they're not sheriffs. The sheriff's department deputizes all officers for that reason. And so I got on scene, and the sergeant on scene was like, you just told him about your rifle. Can you get into position to get like Overwatch on this house, get the front door, whatever. And so I linked up with the Casper officer, and we went through a alley and came up on the side of the house. And I was like 60 yards, 70 yards away. I think it was like 67 yards is what they ultimately said it was. And I got set up behind concrete, completely in pitch black. No idea it was there. And I could see into the house through the front door that was open, and I could see him inside the house. And so at 6-7 yards, a 4-power optic is like, I might as well be up on you. And so it's probably 10 or 15 minutes. I was there watching it, kind of feeding information. I can see him moving around the house. And I saw him get up off a couch, walk out of view, and then come back to the door with a rifle. And he walked out onto the porch with the rifle, and he was holding it down. And Tipton was the officer there. He's a gaming commission guy in Las Vegas now. He's like, gun, and I'm like, I see it. And you could process all that shit. You know what I mean? Yep. And about the time it clicks in my mind that he's come out onto the porch with a gun, I'm already deciding like where to shoot this dude. And it's just wild how fast it processes. I'm like, if I shoot this dude in the head, it'll look bad. So if I shoot him in the chest, that's center mass. And so you're having these weird thoughts that come through. And then I'm also like, and this dude is like, might as well be up on me in a scope, like, you know what I mean? In a 4-power optic at 67 yards. And I mean, I could see his nipple hairs, right? Like it's very clear. And then I'm like, he's got the rifle. And then as you start going through this checklist, and about the time I kind of hit this point where I'm like, all right, center mass, rifle. If he raises it up and he starts shooting. So he raises it at the spotlights from the cop cars on the other side, and he starts shooting, and I shoot him. Like I've watched the video a million times. As he fires his 5th shot, I shoot him. And so he had exposed his left side when he turned and moved this way. And so I hit him like mid-axillary on the left side, left lateral, and it fucking dumped him immediately. Like he folded up, he screamed, fell down. And then he started to get back up again, and I fired another shot just as his head fell behind this barrier. And so I missed with the second shot. And Tipton was like, and so Tipton the whole time, like as he started shooting, I remember Tipton screaming, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him. And it just like, I had this whole Rolodex of like, check, 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 shoot him. And then he dropped, and it was wild. Like I remember thinking, my first thought was like, holy fuck, that worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What, did he end up shooting anyone, hurting anyone?
No, he all of his rounds went over the top of those guys and impacted houses behind him. But he had fired into 2 or 3 houses, fired like dozens of rounds into houses. And a lady in a neighbor's house where he was shooting into the house was actually her granddaughter on the ground and was laying on top of her while the rounds were going over the top of her.
Jesus Christ.
In the initial, when he was shooting into the houses.
Did he end up dying?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was dead before he hit the ground.
What, like, why? Do we know?
He had some mental health issues that they could aware of, but he had no drugs or alcohol in his system.
Damn.
No note, no motive to this day. I mean, my belief is that he shot into the neighbors' houses to pull the police there. He fired at the cops when they got there, didn't get shot, ran back into the house, and then worked his way up to getting shot. Like that's in hindsight now, it had to have been a suicide by cop.
Crazy,
but there's no motive behind it. Like I don't know why he did it.
How did your department at the time treat you? How was your mental everything after that? How did you cope with that?
My chief, the same one I told you had personality conflict with, treated me great. Like he was fantastic. The chief of Casper at the time, who ultimately ended up getting asked to leave, right? That he was that good. As soon as he found out that it wasn't a Casper cop who shot, he washed his hands of it, right? And just like a prick, right? But my chief was fantastic, right? And so he was great. He came out that night. He went with me to DCI for the initial officer involved shooting stuff. Stayed in touch with me. Is a good dude. Like I couldn't have asked for a better process with that. And then I was back to work in a month, I think. And then, but I didn't get cleared by the DA for like 3 months.
That's probably pretty normal, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but they did their internal, and it was so clear cut, justified. And mental health wise, man, honestly, it never bothered me. I don't know why I can't. One of the things I've struggled with later on after these 2 shootings and not necessarily feeling bad about them was like, are you fucked up that you don't care?
Like a psychopath?
Yeah, like, are you a psychopath? And so, you know, it's taken a little work to get through that portion of that, to realize that like there's not a requirement to feel bad about it. But society thinks you're supposed to feel bad about it.
I my personal opinion is like, if you go into this profession knowing that this is a possibility, it's much easier to cope with when you have to do something like that, or someone does die as a result of their actions, but you're there kind of, you know, I never put it on officers' actions. It's the person that, you know, led into those. So it's the individual's fault, you know, that they're in that situation. And if you go into this profession knowing that like there's a possibility that you're going to get hurt or worse, or there's a possibility that you're going to have to do that in order to preserve other life, like when it happens, I think that you have a better coping mechanism than thinking that like cops dance around on TikTok or whatever the fuck other, you know, some.
Yeah, don't even get me started about fucking.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's like, and I think it all goes into the mindset that you go into the profession with. If you go in thinking it's like, you're not going to see dead bodies regularly, and you're not going to see fucking the worst of society regularly, and then all of a sudden you start doing it, it's going to fuck with you mentally. I promise it is. But if you go in knowing you're going to see that shit, I think you can cope with it a lot easier than some people that come in with a different mindset of what this job is.
Yeah. Yeah, because that never bothered me, right? Like, I mean, I'll tell you, we can get to it. There's things in this job that did fuck with me, and still to this day do, but they're not violent encounters, right? They're not shootings. They're not, those aren't the things that did it. And so, you know, I felt like I was supposed to feel bad that I, you know, shot somebody, and I never did. And so there was a part of me that was like, what the hell's wrong with you? You don't feel bad. And the reality is like, he caused it, not me. And it's like, I don't feel bad when I tase somebody.
Right.
Right. And I know that sounds fucked up because one of them results in death, one doesn't. But when somebody fights you and they get tased, you don't feel bad afterwards for subjecting them to the pain that a taser causes, right? That's their fault. They caused that. And so, well, the end result was death, you know, in this scenario, like, you know, it wasn't done It wasn't done on my, like, I didn't make the choice to do it. That dude made the choice. And so like that was pretty easy to deal with. I never had any issues with that. Honestly, the only thing that sucks after a shooting is how many people want to come out of the woodwork and call you and talk to you and talk about it and joke about it and bring it up every chance they get. And you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is Jake. Do you know he's killed somebody? Right? Like that type of shit. Like,
Yeah,
at some point you're like, all right, man, like, you know, I don't really go around and talk about it. I don't go, hi, my name's Jake and I've been in 2 OISs. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like, you know, I teach a dozen classes a year or more, and I don't introduce myself and say I've been in a couple of OISs, right? Like,
Exactly.
it's like, but what I learned is that cops want to live vicariously through those that do things that they want to make sure they could do, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
everybody wants to know that in the heat of the moment, they will react and respond accordingly. And so sometimes you like live vicariously through the actions of another cop.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to convince yourself that like, if I'm in that scenario, I'll make the right choice.
No, and I think it might sound weird, but I do think guys or girls, the cops that throw it out there and mention it, it's more probably that they're proud of the actions that you took and just don't know necessarily how to like say it in the right way. So it comes out very awkwardly, you know? So they're more like, yeah, like I would feel awkward in those same situations that you're talking about, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm assuming that it's more of like a compliment and it just comes out awkwardly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think there is an ego side of that. That's like, hey, listen, man, I was in a situation. I got tested with it. I made a decision. I did the right thing. And I think you feel good about doing the right thing, you know?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So
how far after this one did you go get involved in your second one?
Oh man, that was what, 2 years ago now?
Yeah, it was relatively recently.
Yeah. So there was 8 years or something, I think, between the two, something like that.
Do you know the statistics to get in the first officer involved shooting? The likelihood. Do you know what the likelihood of a cop getting in an OIS is for the first time?
Isn't it like less than 1% or something like that?
I think it's 3%.
3%.
Do you know what the percentage at the second time?
I've heard that it's like 80% or something. It's extremely high.
I think it's 55, and then the third is like a 75 to 85%. So it's like
yes, so the chance of doing a third has gone up.
Yes, it goes up dramatically each time. So it's like it's crazy. And I was talking to I have a buddy that's a cop in Indiana, and he's been in 3, and he says it's just because, and he's also got his master's in psychology, so he puts that spin. He's like, it's because you've seen this picture, you've seen it played out, and you're not gonna like the first time you get involved, you probably let it go too far, and you shouldn't have let it go. He's like, so now when I see these things, I'm like, oh shit, I saw all this. I'm not letting it get to there this time, and it's the action's taken faster, and he's not putting as many people at risk. And I was like, man, that's crazy. Just think how your mind works in those situations.
It's nuts. Well, and like having been in 2, I get this a lot too. People are talking shit because it's a smaller community. People, like every once in a while, my name will get dropped in like here's an example for you. We had an OIS here a couple, like 8 months ago or 10 months ago. I don't remember exactly how it was. And one of the first comments when they did the PR or the press release on like there was an OIS but didn't name the officers, like one of the first comments was like, I bet it was Bigelow since he's got all these bodies, right? Like that's crazy to fucking put that shit out there. Right. And so, you ignore that shit, but I'm like, you guys are fucking idiots. And I'm like, and it wasn't me. All right. So go fuck yourself. But
why do you think, before we go into your second one, why do you think that is? Why do you think that, I feel like that whole area, like Casper, Wyoming, or Wyoming, Montana, like North to South Dakota, like, there just seems to be a lot more officer-involved shootings per capita than other places.
And they're justified as fuck.
No, that's what I'm saying. But what is that is?
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's just like meth and white people. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? I know that sounds fucked up to say out loud, but like, I am terrified of methed out, like 30-year-old white dudes in Wyoming. Because they're dangerous as fuck, man. Like they grew. I mean, think about it. They grow up in Wyoming. They grow up around gun culture. They grow up around not necessarily like sovereign citizen, but they grow up around like anti-government. They grow up fighting, right? They grow up in this, and there's so many guns, and so it's like, I don't know, man. It's like they're just so much more willing to fight you, or drag you in a car, or pull a gun on you, or threaten you with guns, and. So I don't know, man. I don't know if there's a correlation. I'm certainly don't have the studies on that, but
I wonder if it's just the mindset of that area, because a lot of it is kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to defend anyone, but it's almost like a libertarian, like little government. Let me do what the hell I want. But then they do, in the grand scheme of things, kind of like support the Second Amendment, support. I think in the grand scheme of things, support law enforcement, like those types of things. But they don't necessarily like the political, the government oversight, like those types of things. It's in that area. It's just it's an interesting dynamic for sure.
Well, we've had, I think at one point, I want to say last year, Wyoming as a whole, per capita, led the nation in officer-involved shootings. And there's only 600,000 people in the whole state of Wyoming.
I know, it's crazy.
And Wyoming has the least amount of police officers in the whole nation in the state, like in one state, or one of the least. I think it is probably the least amount of police officers in one state. And it led the nation per capita in officer-involved shootings. I mean, like, I personally have been involved in 2 and have been associated with, investigated with, or aware of, or working for this agency on probably 20.
Gosh, man, it's so crazy.
Like, it is wild how many officer involved shootings happen, and they're justified. I mean, if you want to pull it up, you can watch it. We just had our most recent one. They got ambushed. She called in a fake burglary, and a female. She dressed in a police uniform, called in a fake burglary. And when the officers came to the door, she opened the door, put a gun in Maple's face, and pulled the trigger.
I do remember. Did it jam or something?
She didn't load around. I don't know if she didn't load her or didn't go. It misfired, but she, like, you can hear the click on the body camera. And before Maples has a chance to react, she pulls the trigger, and then Maples and Gonzo return fire and dump her in the house.
I do remember seeing that video. That's
wild, dude.
So crazy.
Fucking insane. And Maples is the luckiest guy on the planet. And Maples had just gotten cleared from another OIS like 8 months prior.
That's crazy.
Completely justified on a domestic violence dude. The dude went for a rifle and told him he was going to kill him and went after a rifle.
Crazy. Did you see the Ohio one by chance?
Which
shoplifter? One? There's male.
Oh, the dude in the loss prevention office.
Yeah. So the cop just comes in like a normal, like, shop like that we all deal with on a regular basis, and he asks him for his ID, and he reaches in and pulls out a gun, and then
insane. And like
he pulls the trigger, and it didn't go bang, and
then he starts racking it.
Yeah, and then starts racking it, and then like
the loss prevention dude.
The loss prevention guy jumps on him, but the cop was getting ready, I think, to smoke him, and the loss prevention
got in the way.
Like he was doing something.
Crazy,
yeah, dude. That, I mean,
crazy.
like, I just look at it and like, dude, we deal with that on a daily basis. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, and he had to be sitting in there for an hour probably. That's how ours, because our loss prevention people do the affidavits and everything, and then we come there, but it's usually about an hour before they call us. I'm like, it's just crazy to me. Like, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, yeah, most average call we go to, and it was like, man, life or death with him like that.
Oh, he's so lucky, dude. He got so lucky.
Yep. Anyways, let's talk about your second one, man.
Yeah. The second one was a lot more fucked up, and I messed up on that one for sure. Like not the use of force, but so I had a trainee. He was on it was like final day. He was done, and he's like, take me out to, we call it Northtown, right? North Casper. It's kind of a, it's where you go find criminals in 3 a.m.
Gotcha.
And he's like, take me out to Northtown, show me how you do criminal interdiction, right? And so we're parked up waiting. I'm just waiting for the right vehicle. Same, you know what I mean? Sitting, parallel across the road, or, lateral across the road as cars are driving by. And I'm like, nope. And one drove by, and I'm like, did you see that? And he's like, yeah, the dude saw us, dipped back behind his seat, like dropped his head down. You know what I mean? And I said, that's it. So pull out, and license plate lights out. I'm like, all right, so you already have a traffic stop, but let's get some behavior, so that way we can stop them, or if they self-stop. And so we follow them, and as soon as we pull in behind them, they dip off to a side street. And then as we follow them down the side street, self-stop, the old self-stop. They pull over
at a house or something.
Yeah, he pulls up in front of a house, right, and stops. And my guy, he's a lateral from another agency, but I don't think he'd done much criminal interdiction. And he kind of panicked for a second. I said, you already have a violation. Make the stop. Line him up. Create a detention. We're not going to do a consensual encounter unless you already have a violation. And he self-stopped. And he's already, like, for me, doing what I do, he's already told me everything I need to know, right? Like, you see a car and you're like, there's fucking dope in that car. You know what I mean? There's a load in that car. And so we walk up, have the interaction. I'm not really involving myself in the conversation. He's not really doing interdiction the way I would, but I'm letting him kind of do his thing. So I'm on the passenger side. And the passenger is big fat dude, and he's buried in his phone. He's got his hood up, and he's kind of like, you know, ignoring me, pretending like I'm not there. I try to talk to him. He rolls the window down a little bit, but he's pretending like I don't exist. And so we ID him, and he gives me a fake name, right? And I knew it was a fake name just because of the way he said it. But I don't ever confront behavior like that in the car.
Same.
So he gave me a fake name. I just took the fake name and I called him by his fake name. So I'm going to talk to him by his fake name. And so the trainee actually goes back to the car, which is not what I do, right? But I didn't get a chance to be like, no, don't break contact. Let's just get him out. He goes back to the car. And so I'm like, all right, do your thing. I'm still up here. I still have contact. And we start working some things. And I asked the passenger some questions, and he's just acting super shader. And then he rolls the window up on me. And so I'm like, hey, why don't you hop out of the car for me? We'd already called for more units. And he refuses to get out of the car, rolls his window up, wants a sergeant, does that whole typical game. And then he starts talking to the driver. And I hear him telling the driver, drive away or go, something to the extent like, just get out of here. And the driver's like, fuck that, I'm not doing that. And so they have this argument, and out of nowhere, the driver just throws the door open and gets out. And I don't know what's going on. So he gets out and he starts moving around to the back of the car, and my trainee's in the patrol car still. And so I pulled my gun and went to meet him on the backside of the car, right? Because I want to get in, but I don't know what he's doing. And as I come around the car, he's like, I don't want anything to fucking do with this, right? He's like, I don't want anything to do with this. And so he's surrendering right away. And I look, and so my trainee had gotten out of the car and come up, and I look back, and the dude in the passenger seat is now trying to take his 350-pound fat ass and climb into the driver's seat. And I knew exactly what he was doing. And so I ran back to the passenger seat, and I reached in and I started trying to pull the passenger out, like back to the passenger seat. And so I always told myself I would never get into a vehicle, but now you change the situation a little bit. I'm not climbing into a vehicle. I'm dealing with a passenger, bro. There's no driver here. Right. And so it never even crossed my mind that like this vehicle has a chance of taking off with me. And so in the process of trying to pull this dude back, you're not going to win that leverage game.
Nope.
And before I realize it, dude, that fat fuck is in the front seat of the car, and he's gotten himself into the driver's seat, and I am all the way in the car on the passenger seat on my knees, right, in this leverage game. And as soon as I realize it, he puts it in drive, and I knew it. I knew I was fucked at that point. And so he puts it in drive, and I start yelling, if you drive away with me, I'll fucking kill you. I'm going to fucking shoot you. And he takes off. And so now I'm on my knees in the passenger seat with the door open, and we're doing like 70 miles an hour down this shitty fucking residential side street. And so I'm screaming at him to stop the fucking car. And I'm in pure 100% panic. Like, I hate my video. When I watch that video, I'm like, man, you sound like a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, I
would have been the same way.
You know what I mean? Like when you replay it, you're like, you're screaming at this dude to stop the fucking car, I'll shoot you, motherfucker, stop the car, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And like, I'm trying to use that I'm trying to be very clear. And in my mind, I'm trying to figure out, when do I shoot this dude? How do I shoot this dude? I know we're going really fast down a side street. If I shoot this dude, I'm going to die. If I don't shoot this dude, I'm going to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's, and at one point I say, stop the car, I'm going to fucking kill you, or something to that extent. And he says, shoot me then. And it clicked, but it didn't click. And I said, one more time, I'm going to fucking shoot you. And he said, shoot me then. And the second time he said that, dude, if you watch that video, I shut down, right? And shut down that was the moment I knew I was fucked. And there's no other way for me to put it. Told this story a million times, and I can replay it over and over and over again. That was the second I knew I was fucking dead, right? Like, there was no way I was going to survive this, because we're doing 70 miles an hour. And he doesn't give a fuck. And this dude's going to kill me. He's going to kill himself and kill me in the process. That's all this dude cares about. Because I'm telling him, I'm holding a gun in his face, telling him I'm going to kill him. And he just doesn't give a shit. He's like, shoot me then. And so I stopped yelling at him, and I got dead silent. And there's this gap where I say nothing. And then the next question in my mouth is, what are you doing? Like, to him, like, what are you doing? And so now I'm almost talking to this dude. And it's like that moment, that split second where I was like, I'm dead, was it like, I don't know how to describe it other than I knew I was going to die, or at least not come out of it the same. And so I just kind of, as fucked up as it sounds, I just kind of accepted it. Like, I didn't have that moment that was like, man, sure wish I could still be a dad, or like, man, I fucked this up. I just was like my only thought was like, all right. Like, I was just like, you surrendered to it, which is crazy, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, do you think you had like a moment of clarity, like after it clicked in you that he's like, he's going to die one way or the other, and he's just going to take me with him? 100%. And then when you start to ask them, like, what are you doing? Is that like more of a motive of to get mindset of where he's at? Like, I'm going to kill myself. And then you're like, okay.
I don't know. I have no motive behind that question. It's just
Okay.
it just came out of my mouth. I cannot tell you why I asked that question, but I can tell you definitively in that moment, I accepted that I was fucked and that it's almost like I think about it like this, like, because I fly. I'm like, what if something ever happens, right? And I'm dive bombing to the ground, and that ground's getting closer. In those last 10 seconds where I know I'm going to die, what is that? What's the dude in the plane doing? Is he screaming? Is he fucking screaming no? You know what I mean? Or like, is the dude like, all right, bring it? I don't know the answer to that. And so the only thing I think of in that moment was like, I just kind of accepted I was fucked, and I didn't really have another thought about it. I just was like, all right. And I wouldn't say it was peaceful. Like, it wasn't a peaceful thought. It was like, there was no real thought about it. It just was like, I think I'm going to die, and I have no control over this at this point. If I shoot him, I die. If I don't shoot him, I die. Like, I'm kind of fucked. And as fast as that happened, I had been fighting over the gear shifter. So I had a gun out, and he's driving this car, laying his fat ass over this gear shifter. And so I'm trying to put it in park. I'm fighting over the gear shifter to put it in park, and I can't get to it. So all this happens while that's happening. And he had pushed the steering wheel, and we jumped this curb. I mean, I felt it. We went like, it threw me into the door. Somehow I got the door shut. And I ended up against the door, and like, we're bouncing over these curbs. And I didn't know it at the time, but what had happened is he'd gone over the curbs, through a corner of a parking lot, back onto a street, through a burrow ditch, onto an off ramp the wrong way, and then over the burrow ditch, and then up onto the interstate. And so you had this, right? And we end up on the interstate the wrong way. I didn't know we were on the interstate, but all of those major bumps, it caused him to come up. And at one point, he came up far enough that I got the gear shifter into park. And when I got the gear shifter into park, I heard the transmission destroy itself, because this was like an old piece of shit Explorer, like a 99 Explorer. And so I heard the transmission grind and destroy itself. And then I could hear the gas going, right? So he had it floored, but it wasn't engaged anymore. And dude, when that happened, it was like it sucked me right out of this "you're dead" moment, and it put me right back into the stop the fucking car, right? Like, I went right back into, I think I might not die scenario. And as soon as he realized, I still didn't know I was on the interstate. We were the wrong way on the interstate at this point. And as soon as he realized he wasn't going to drive anymore, he reached back behind him, and he stuck his hand into this black backpack that I saw when he did it. And he started to pull out a silver object, which ended up being a big 357 like replica BB gun.
Oh, wow.
You couldn't tell. It was real by all accounts. And he started to pull the gun. So you hear me yelling, quit reaching, quit reaching, quit reaching. And then quit fucking reaching. And then I see the gun, and then I shot him. And so I shot him 4 times. And I could feel the car slowing down. And then at that point, it wasn't even the car anymore. It was like, he's going to pull a gun out and fucking shoot me now. So it was like everything came together, and I hit that point where I was like, I have no choice now. So I shot him, and dude, he fucking died instantly. It's wild, right? Like, instantly. So I hit him. I leaned forward because he turned, right? So like, if we're here, he turns to reach. So he gives me his entire chest. And so I had the gun out. And so I leaned forward, and I shot him like twice, dead center in the chest. And it folded him like this. And then one round hit him in the shoulder, and he folded down, and the next one hit him in the neck. And I don't remember where, I just shot. And so he made that, like, he took the grunt noise, and then almost instantly slumped forward. And then he started to fall, and then he fell over on me. And so now I was holding him off of me. And then I was holding him off of me, got on the radio, called shots fired. And then I looked up and realized we were on the fucking interstate. And so the car's coasting. And so I grabbed the wheel, and I called shots fired, and I could see the sign for where we were at. I didn't know where we were at, but I saw the sign. And so I called shots fired, said where I was at. And then I pushed the steering wheel, and the car went off the road and then like crashed through a fence and into a fence and came to a stop. And so once we finally got stopped, I got out of the car, and my trainee pulled up behind us. So he had left the dude on the side of the road. Thank God, because that's the right choice. He left the dude on the side of the road, got in the car, and chased us. And so I've never been so fucking happy in my life when I got out of the car, and I was like, "You're here, buddy. You passed. Like, you passed PTO, right?"
When you fire into that car, does your hearing go to shit, or were you okay?
I didn't hear it at the time, but after I was standing there, my ears started ringing so bad. Like once my adrenaline came down, my ears started ringing so fucking bad. And I went and I did a workers' comp and got tested. And I don't know how much of the hearing loss was from that and how much already existed, but I got hearing aids now. I just don't wear them very often.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh, dude, I got some badass Bluetooth $6,500 workers' comp hearing aids because I lost all the hearing in the high tones, is what they said. So like female voices and like if there's noise in a room, like think being in a restaurant and everybody's talking, it drowns out. I can't fucking hear shit in the high tones, and so the hearing aids like block that noise out and increase the high tones.
Interesting. That's crazy, man. And
I didn't hear the gunshots. I did not hear the gunshots, but I definitely could tell that I fired a gun in a fucking car with the windows up later.
Because it was at night too, right?
Yeah, at night.
The Flash. Do you remember Flash? Do you remember anything like that?
Mm.
Did he bleed all over you?
Yeah. Like I didn't know it at the time. This sounds fucking crazy, right? It was at night. I couldn't tell. When we pulled him out of the car, so me and the guy, we pulled him out of the car. And here's the dude, just for the record, he was wearing fucking clothes when he kidnapped me, right? And got shot. He had clothes on. But when we pulled him out of the car, somehow in us getting him out of the car, we like stripped him naked. Like his fucking pants came off, his shirt came off. And I can't tell you how. I have no idea. We didn't do it on purpose. We get him out of the car. And I remember seeing an entrance wound in his chest. And I thought I shot him twice. And so later I found out that the first 2 rounds impacted in the same spot.
Wow.
And so it was just a big entrance wound. And it had no blood. There was no blood. It was like dead center sternum, no blood. And so there was no blood at all that I could see. But later, when I had to go give my clothes and everything as part of the investigation, I was wearing a black sweatshirt because I was doing final phase of PTO. So I was in civilian clothes. But I was wearing like a belt, gun. I had a radio, badge. But I had a black sweatshirt on, and I just fucking bought it too. And when I took my sweatshirt off at DCI, I had blood all over my arm. Like, so apparently when I was holding him up, it like saturated, but I never felt it. And so I had his blood all over my arm. And so I had that sweatshirt on for like an hour and a half or something like that before I gave it up. So I had no idea that my arm was saturated in blood. So it's all dried and shit.
God, that's disgusting.
No idea. I had no idea.
Same, no issues.
Yeah, so I did have issues with that one, but it wasn't shooting the dude that did it, right? Like, the crazy thing is I think I was pissed at that dude at first, and then here's the wild thing. This is what I'll tell you about that one. I found out pretty quickly after that the dude had like 5 kids.
Damn.
And so that's the shitty part about both of those shootings. You learn about the people.
Yeah.
Right. And so he had like 5 kids, but then I found out pretty quickly that the baby mamas hate him. The kids don't talk to him. He has no custody. He's in and out of prison. But nonetheless, I find out he's got 5 kids. And so now I'm like thinking to myself, man, this dude had 5 kids. And I was pretty fucking pissed off at him at first, like, because that's the only time as a cop I was ever really certain I was dead. Right. Like you get into some things and you're like, wow, that sucked. But like, that's the only time I was certain I was dead. Right. I had accepted that I was about to die. And so I was pretty mad at first at it. And I'm like, fuck that dude. But anymore now I'm like, how fucked up. I guess maybe I'm trying to see things with compassion. You know what I mean? I think Mike probably talked about that, Morgan.
Yep.
Like changing your lens on things. And so I struggled pretty hard with that. And so now my view on that is like, I think there's some compassion there for like how bad things were for you that you were willing to kill yourself or kill somebody else to get away. And so I don't have any resentment towards that. I will tell you what fucked me up on that. And I had no idea was when I came back to the street after that shooting, the first time I went to make a traffic stop that had any criminal behavior with it, dude, it was like I was sympathetic nervous system activation again. Like I started hyperventilating, my heart rate went through the roof and I could not figure out what was happening. And I had to convince myself to make that traffic stop because my brain was telling me, don't make the stop. And man, I struggled with that for fucking months after that. I would go to make a stop and I would have like a panic attack. But I told myself immediately, I'm like, the first time you don't make the traffic stop because your mind's telling you not to, you're done being a cop.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
You're done. And so And so now it's been years, and every once in a while it still happens, but it's just kind of become like, you ever watch Dexter, the TV show Dexter?
I don't.
So he makes a statement in there, like his dark passenger, right? Like it's like these things are a part of him. Not that maybe a serial killer show is what I'm talking about here, but my point is he's got like this thing that he carries with him.
Yep.
And so now it's just kind of become this thing that happens sometimes, right? Like I know that it may happen, and when it happens, I'm like, okay, that's familiar. I know what it is. And you just got to kind of like set it aside. I try not to ignore it, but I set it aside. So that one did fuck with me a little bit. And so that, but not in the way that like people would think. Like,
No, I get it. It makes sense. You mentioned Morgan again. How did you and him hook up or meet?
I reached out to a guy. So I've been really heavy into like first responder mental health in the last couple of years.
Do you think that your shootings have anything to do with that?
Yeah, well, somewhat. I don't think the shootings have something to do with it. I think reaching a point where I could not continue on the path I was on in totality, right? Childhood, reaching a point in maturity or age where you're like, man, I have fucked up a marriage. My relationship with my daughter isn't what I want it to be. I've been with Hannah for years, and am I who I'm supposed to be for her? And so I kind of reached a point where I was like, you are not healing in a way. And I know people talk about mental health, but like, you're not healing in a way that makes sense. Right. And so I started to identify these common denominator behaviors that I have, prone to get angry when I get challenged. Right. And not at work. Right. Like I don't lose my temper at work, but man, Hannah would, challenge something, I get fucking pissed about it. Right. And you're like, this isn't normal behavior. And so honestly, what it was is I had done the counseling after these shootings and stuff, and, and tried all that and played that game. And there just really wasn't anything that I identified with. And so I did try to get into the mental health side of things and to start trying to see it from a different perspective. And so I was talking to a guy that was big in the veteran first responder community on that. And he actually connected me with Morgan. Yeah. And said, well, hey, you should talk to this dude. He's a retired cop, worked on the mental health side, and he's got some cool things going. And so I reached out to him and we started chatting. And so now we've talking quite a bit about that. And so that's the biggest thing that I've switched it up. Instead of trying to identify with like, oh man, you had these traumatic incidents and you're dealing with these traumatic incidents, is to try and change the mindset for yourself. Be like, it's not really about dealing with the traumas. It's about kind of like going inward and dealing with your own bullshit. And being accountable for your bullshit, right? Like,
yep. What is a way that you cope with all of just on the job stresses when you're off duty?
I try really hard not to do cop shit off duty.
Okay.
That's really the answer for me, is like, I try really
hard.
hard.
The gym help you at all? Working out, anything like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I go to the gym every day. I've got my other businesses. Mm-hmm. And so like, I just try really hard to, I think the biggest thing for me is like recognizing and learning about the things you can't control and just not letting those have power over you. I was talking to a guy today. I call it the pink hat theory. What's the name of the dude who wrote the book, Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement?
I know who I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, I know.
I went through a class that he taught one time. Like I actually got to go see him in person, and he had this story about a pink hat. And the long story short, I know we've been doing this for a while, but it was, if you go to a department, let's say a brand new chief comes into a police department with 100 cops, and that chief on day one says, hey, listen, you know what? From here on out, you guys got to wear a pink cowboy hat on shift 24/7. So when you work, you wear a pink cowboy hat. I'm not going to change anything else, but you got to wear a pink cowboy hat, right? How many fucking cops would quit? How many cops would in his locker? How many cops would lose their fucking mind, dude? Yep. How many cops would walk around and say, this is fucking bullshit and blah, 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 and they'd lose their minds? And how many of those cops would ruin their careers over a pink hat?
A lot.
And how many of those cops that live paycheck to paycheck, supporting their entire family, and that's their revenue stream, and they don't have any fallback, would fuck their careers up and lose their revenue for their families and put their families in desperate situation over a pink hat? A lot.
Lots.
And the point of that story is, he's like, you get paid to wear a pink hat, and then when you go home, you don't have to wear the pink hat, and you don't have any say over whether or not you wear the pink hat. So wear the fucking pink hat. Put the pink hat on. You can't control it. Do your job, and then go home. You're going to ruin your financial future. You're going to ruin your family's financial freedom. You're going to destroy a career you've been in for 12 years over a pink hat, right? And I know that some people, they don't get it, but like that's a anecdote for a much bigger problem, and that is people destroy themselves over shit they have zero control over.
It's a fact. It's a fact. We I don't know if it's all professions. Definitely it's professional. We always we get I guess frustrated, upset with minor changes within the profession, or things that you don't have a say in, and it is what it is, and you dwell or you ponder on the negative aspect of that, when you know what, if you just thought positive and move forward and controlled yourself and what you can control, the profession and the career is going to be a lot easier.
Oh man, yeah, just worry about yourself. So I think that's the other thing I've really pushed heavily on, is like recognizing that I can worry about the things I can worry about, and then don't focus on the others. But truly, I mean, as dumb as it sounds, hippie as it sounds, like that's that inner shadow work, the inner child work, right? Like, you know, going back and looking at yourself, like utter accountability, sitting there and identifying, like, I am upset about something and where's it actually coming from, and trying to, and it gets, you know, for me, I found that it gets a little easier over time to not get so quote unquote, you know, I don't mean it in the like the liberal way, the trigger,
Right.
the trigger of you know, a defensive response to a critique or some shit like that. Like, and so that's been a big focus, is like the mental health side of it, that's why I reached out to Morgan. That's why I've been talking to Morgan a lot, and, you know, working on that first responder mental health. I'd really like to get involved in that type of stuff at some point in some capacity. I'm just not sure how to do it. So
I'm happy to see individuals in law enforcement, out of law enforcement, that were in law enforcement, that we at least have this conversation now when it comes to mental health. When I first started, I was involved in an incident with my first 5 years, and I was told the typical things like,
deal with it.
who cares? You know, he's a PO, you know, he's not a good person, and all these other things. And I'm like, well, like that didn't really help me out, guys. So like, you know, I had some good friends that were clinicians, and they helped me out. But, you know, like that come full circle, like now it's very easy to talk about those things. And I feel like it's not so much looked down upon if you do want to talk about them. So I'm happy that, you know, we've kind of come full circle with law enforcement. And I hope it keeps progressing in that way.
Yeah. Well, you know,
What
I did a podcast with another buddy of mine who runs a Zero Foxtrot podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Morgan's actually just did a podcast with him too. So Zach Benton. It's the Zulu what is it? Zero Fox. It's Zulu Foxtrot podcast. It's a clothing line, but they got a pretty good podcast, and Zach's the host for that. And what's funny is I went to Austin and did a podcast with him, and I talked about some mental health shit. You know how many comments on that podcast called me a fucking pussy for talking about mental health? Right? And I'm like, it's just wild to me. Right? And I don't give a shit. Like, anybody who says that, like you're broken your own way, man. Like when you think that, but that mentality is just a terrible mindset to have.
I actually feel bad for people like that, because it is like, I can only imagine the misery that you're living through and not talking about, because you have the mindset that if I talk about it, I'm a pussy or whatever, you know, like it's such a horrible way to think.
Well, and the ego speaking, I mean, like I look at it this way, I say, cool, man, you think I'm a pussy for talking about mental health, yet I go to work every day and arrest people, you know, get in fights weekly, you know, because I'm going out for bad guys. I've been in 2 OISs. I'm a sergeant on a fucking street crimes unit, right? And you think I'm a pussy because I talk about mental health, right? Like, what, from your fucking basement?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's funny. It's funny to see that. And that's the ego talking, but you're right. Like, you feel bad for those people that they haven't seen it yet.
One other your incidents I want to talk about real quick is the incident from the corrections officer that got home invasion while he was home with his wife and kid, I think.
Yeah.
So I love that podcast, because he speaks so highly of your agency, and in the grand scheme of things, a lot of podcasts, you know, it's out there, it's negativity drives negativity, and that kind of leads the feed in the social media world. But he gave that story, and he ended with that story talking about how well he was treated by your agency and how good of a police department is. So kind of want to give your perspective since you were there.
Yeah, I listened to that whole podcast. I was shocked when you told me that, because you messaged me and you're like, hey dude, I just interviewed a dude and he was from Casper. Apparently he was a corrections officer and got a home invasion robbery. And I'm like, no shit, dude. I was on that. Right.
I didn't interview him. I listened to the BAM's podcast, and he had him on, and I interviewed the host of that. That's right.
It wasn't you had him. Yeah. And yeah. Sorry. And so, and you sent me the link to it, I think is what it was. Yeah. And so it's just wild to hear that. And so, yeah, man, like that poor guy moved his family out here. And what he didn't know when he moved out here was the house that he rented was an old trap house. And so this house, I mean, I'd hit that house on search warrants a dozen times over my career, right? I'd arrested 50 people out of the house over my career. I mean, it was a huge doper house, and it got sold or foreclosed on or however it got done. And whoever bought it remodeled it, renovated, did a nice job. It was a nice reno house. And but this poor guy moved into it, had no idea what the history was in it. And so I know in his podcast, he there's some belief that he was targeted as a corrections officer specifically.
Right. Yep.
And they target him. I didn't do the investigation. I certainly wouldn't discount his statement on that. I'm more inclined to believe that they actually thought that it was still a doper house. And they weren't doing it, but also because even in his statement, he's like, once the guy saw that there were sheriff's uniforms in the house, like he kind of froze.
The second guy, yeah.
The second guy, I think they were going in, and again, that wasn't me. So I'm not. If he listens to this, I hope he doesn't think that I'm trying to, dispute his statement. But my belief is more likely that they thought they were going into a doper house. But I don't know if he knew the history of the house when he was in that podcast, and so I do. But that poor guy moves his family here, takes a job, and after being here for a relatively short period of time, these two shitheads. The crazy thing is, one of the guys involved in that I had just arrested like a week prior on a traffic stop with guns and dope, and they had just committed a strong armed robbery on another doper when I pulled him over. So I got him right after they robbed this doper. I couldn't charge him with robbery because, of course, I don't have a victim. You know what I mean? But they ultimately admitted what had happened, and so they got let out of jail. And one of them in that traffic stop linked up with another guy, and they went over and forced their way into that house and almost got killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he fought the dude in his underwear, like big dude, and he fought off one dude in his fucking underwear.
Yeah, I remember. I think he said it was like 6'4", 6'7", or something.
Yeah, he fights one guy in his underwear. Poor guy was working night shift, so he's asleep. Wakes up to this home invasion robbery, and his wife gets his gun. He can't get to his gun because he's in the middle of this fight, and the gun's like on the other side of the room. And so his wife gets the gun, and finally they run out, and so it gets called in, and we show up pretty quickly. And so we pulled his Ring doorbell camera footage, and I just arrested the dude. So like as soon as I saw the footage, I was like, that's him. That's this dude. And then we identified the other guy pretty quick. And then because it was a cop who got a stronger, home invasion robbery, we went all hands on deck. So every single
pretty quick, right?
Yeah, I think we had first guy in custody in like, I want to say less than 12 hours, and the second guy within 18 hours. And they went into hiding, but we were able to track him down.
That's awesome.
Because it was that was like priority number one. The only thing every cop in Casper gave a fuck about was finding those two that robbed that dude. So, and then our victim services people stepped up and like bought him hotel rooms and, and I think
you guys went back and boarded up his house and stuff too.
Yeah,
like
he didn't have to go there to like board up his house and shit. So, his sheriff's department, we got a great sheriff also, good staff with the sheriff's department, and so the sheriff took care of him and went out there, like literally came out there and was with the dude, and you know what I mean, and like so. So I unfortunately didn't get to talk to him much because I was patrol guy, right? So it was our investigations that dealt with it, but I felt pretty bad for the dude. So it was wild to see his interview and like hear it from his side.
Yeah, I mean, shitty situation. No matter what the reason, whether he's targeted or it was just by happenstance, that that's the situation. Either way, if I was in his shoes, I'd think that they targeted me too. They just got out of fucking jail and all. They saw me there.
And maybe they did. It's that's just my personal belief that they targeted the house, not him. But there's a lot of coincidence there that would say maybe him too. So, because again, he made some statements in that podcast about like it's a smaller community, so there's really no security there. Like the inmates see their cars, and
it's weird.
And so I could see the concern there. So, I don't know if he got targeted as a deputy or if the house got targeted. Regardless, I think ultimately both those guys got some pretty significant prison sentences. I think the main guy got like 30 something years and the other guy got like 18 or something.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
So this is a long podcast. We've been at it for almost 2 hours. Yeah. If you have nothing else, I always end the podcast with one question. So, but if you have the floor now, if there's anything you want to add, man.
No, man. I don't know why I didn't reach out to you sooner and be like, I wonder if it's the like the imposter syndrome. It's like, what do I have to offer to his podcast? You know what I mean? But then I saw you did Anthony and you did Morgan. I was like, I got to talk some shit now. And so
No, man, I love having the raw original stories. Like I truly do. There's good guys that I love talking to that have great stories, but they've told everyone them. But I still like to have my spin to it. But having people on my podcast that have very similar stories that are never heard, like that's the platform that I want to provide and provide an avenue of having, showing cops are just humans and we all have the same issues, the same trials and tribulations, and sometimes we have great stories to tell about the profession, and sometimes we have shitty ones.
Oh, yeah.
So it just opens people's eyes to what actually happens in this community. But we end every podcast. We teach with Justice Academy. What is your definition of justice?
I think justice is treating people with humanity and accountability, to the greater good of a society. And I think that's what justice is, and that means across the board. I think that police officers deserve justice in the way that they're treated by the society that expects so much of them, and I think society deserves justice from the police officers who place themselves in harm's way for them. And so I think fair and equal treatment across the board. I don't know. That sound fucking stupid?
No, I like it. No, I like it because when my definition has the fairness and equity across the board and society's view on it. Like I might not necessarily agree with all the laws that society has placed on us, but if society as a whole says, yes, this is a law that we want, I have to go along with the majority of society. So that's how I look at it. Like it's not necessarily whether I agree with it or I don't agree with it. It's society says, and it's majority rules in this country. So society says, yes, this is a law. Oh, that's a law.
Yeah. And I think that's why police officers are given discretion, right? Like there's no requirement that a ticket be written.
Exactly.
Right. And so I think that's the important aspect of it. So I think humanity, treating people with compassion and humanity. Maybe if everybody could recognize that everybody sees through their own lens, and that your perception of the world is your own lens, and that's it. And so you will never see it through anybody else's eyes, right? And so compassion for that, I think, is important. Maybe that's my definition of justice. Is if I had to use one word, is compassion. That's a word I've been trying to navigate. So
I get it, man. Well, I appreciate you, bro. It's been nothing but a pleasure. I learned a lot of things about you, even though I had known you for years. And these are typically the hardest podcasts, but it was pretty easy for me just to sit back and throw softballs up for you. And you have great conversations and great stories, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you letting me be on here. Looking forward to hearing it, or not. It'll hear my own voice. I won't listen to it. I'll let other people listen and tell me.
I hate my own voice too, so I never listen to them.
Right on, man. Thanks again.